Chapter 939. The second stage of the Barbarian Tao stage begins. With the protection of the God-vanquishing shield, it shouldn't be difficult for you to pass this stage. As Barbarian Dao Shan gave his order, all the scenery in the world disappeared as if a pair of invisible hands had wiped away everything in the world. Only endless darkness remained. In the darkness, Ning Fan floated alone in the air. His eyes narrowed slightly. Another divine ability that can change the heavens and earth. The first test tested one's willpower. I wonder what the second test will be. There was endless darkness all around, and the air was somewhat damp. There was also the intermittent sound of water dripping coming from the end of the darkness. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. This place was dead silent, only the sound of the water dripping was exceptionally clear. Even with Ning Fan's second-level heavenly being realm eyesight, he could not see through the darkness here. Ning Fan tried to use a few common illumination techniques in the cultivation world, but it could only illuminate a radius of 10 zhang. He still couldn't see anything beyond that. Was this the second stage of the Barbarian Tao test? Barbarians are the ancestors of nature, the great sex of all realms. The barbarian was born in the mountains and seas, attaining the Tao in nature, returning to the mountains and seas after death. The 9 mountains and 8 seas are one world, the reincarnation of heaven and earth is opened in the palm. Sounds of chanting scriptures that seemed to come from the ancient times suddenly resounded. At this moment, Ning Fan's body could no longer stay in the air. His body felt light and fell towards the darkness below. The forbidding force of this place is very strong. Ning Fan's heart shuddered slightly. As his body fell, he sensed several faint killing intents in his surroundings. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan immediately activated the fragment of the divine extermination shield and summoned the shadow of the god extermination giant outside his body. In the next instant, several black shadows the size of small mountains crashed heavily into the god-destroying giant. The resulting shockwaves shook heaven and earth. Boom, boom, boom. The surroundings were too dark, and he couldn't see what it was at all. Ning Fan's expression changed. The impact force of those shadows was definitely comparable to the attacks of immortal venerables of the past 10,000 years. They possessed the power to destroy heaven and earth. If it wasn't for him being vigilant and summoning the god-destroying giant in time to protect himself, he would certainly be severely injured by those shadows. The second stage of the Barbarian Tao was indeed filled with danger. He could not afford to be careless. When the dark shadows missed their attack, they roared furiously and continued to attack the god-destroying giant. However, none of their attacks could hurt Ning Fan, who was inside the giant's body. Ning Fan kept falling downwards while those dark shadows were also chasing after him. The deeper he fell, the denser the dark qi in the surroundings became. When the density of the dark qi in the surroundings reached a certain level, those dark shadows no longer dared to pursue Ning Fan. It was as if they were afraid of something and did not dare to get close to him. The surroundings gradually became quiet. Ning Fan was still falling. He did not know how long he had been falling. Finally, he landed on the ground and found a foothold. After he successfully landed, the forbidden space force disappeared, and the sound of water dripping became even clearer. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The ground beneath his feet was as cold and hard as a rock. Beside his ears, the sound of dripping water could be heard. Ning Fan used the illumination technique again, but he found that it was only enough to illuminate a radius of 10 meters. The darkness aura here was even stronger, not allowing any light to exist. He roughly sensed that there was only his aura in this dark land. There were no other living beings. The absence of other creatures did not mean that there was no danger. Ning Fan did not let his guard down. Instead, he waited at the same spot for a long time. Only when the magic power in his body was faintly insufficient to support the consumption of the god-exterminating shield, did he try to keep the giant god-exterminating shadow. After keeping the god-exterminating shadow, Ning Fan still did not receive any attacks. This place seemed to be very safe. There were no aggressive dark shadows around. The second stage of the Barbarian Dao stage was very different from what he had imagined. Ning Fan had no idea how he should pass this stage. 17 days. If you can stay here for 17 days, you will pass. If you can walk out of this place, you will also pass. You have the protection of the God Exterminating Shield. Even if you can't walk out of this place, it's still very easy for you to stay here for 17 days. However, if it's possible, I still hope to see the scene of you walking out of this place. The voice of the Barbarian Dao Mountain resounded. So this is the way to pass the second stage. Ning Fan pondered for a while. After a while, he seemed to have made up his mind and began to explore the dark land. After he landed, this place was no longer forbidden from flying. He could use the golden light to fly and explore this dark land. This land seemed to be extremely vast. Even with Ning Fan's speed, he had yet to reach the end of the land after spending a day and a night. Moreover, this place gave Ning Fan an extremely strange feeling. It was as if he would not reach the end even if he walked for 100 years or even 1,000 years. This feeling was really strange. On the first day, there was no danger in this place. However, on the second day, some strange changes began to happen. The ground which was originally cold suddenly became warm, just like the body temperature of a human body. Some ravines began to appear on the ground. Gradually, a mysterious power appeared in the world. After the appearance of this power, Ning Fan's body began to show signs of aging without any warning. It was not aging due to the loss of vitality. Instead, it was a kind of aging of Dao. Ning Fan's Dao persistence was aging and walking towards death step by step. This power is the power of samsara. Ning Fan's eyes widened. There was no mistake. This power was clearly the power of samsara. However, it was different from the samsara power that he had seen in the past. The power of samsara was a power that only cultivators at the third step could cultivate. Ning Fan had seen immortal sovereign Zido's samsara power before. It was a terrifying power that could erase all memories and eliminate all existences. However, not all samsara power had the ability to erase people's memories. Ning Fan had seen Sun Luo's samsara power. Even though he was not an immortal emperor, he could fight against the emperors of Eastern Heaven with the power of samsara. That kind of samsara power had very strong offensive power. It was suitable for battles. Ning Fan had seen the grey moon on the 9th floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. That grey moon also contained a trace of samsara power. That kind of samsara power seemed to be able to petrify everything. As his experience grew, Ning Fan gradually realized that not all samsara power was the same. The samsara power in this dark place could make his Dao disintegrate and collapse bit by bit, just like a human aging. This kind of aging had nothing to do with vitality. It could not be suppressed by replenishing vitality. Unless one possessed a power that was equal to the samsara power, he would not be able to resist this kind of aging. Even if there was still vitality in his body, once his Dao persistence is destroyed, he would also die of old age in this place. If I want to stay here for 17 days, I must resist this samsara power. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a hint of enlightenment. While he was exploring this place, he also covered his entire body with the red light of the tribulation sense. The only thing that could resist the samsara power in this place was the tribulation blood power in his body. That was a power that was equal to samsara. With the protection of the tribulation sense, on the second day, the aging power in this place could no longer make Ning Fan grow older. The third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. With each passing day, the samsara power in this place would become much stronger. On the sixth day, Ning Fan finally could not resist the samsara power in this place anymore. His body showed signs of aging again. More and more ravines appeared on the ground. Unknowingly, those ravines began to give Ning Fan a feeling of fear and trepidation. The sixth day seems to be this young man's limit. If he doesn't have the protection of the God-destroying shield, he can at most last 6 days in the second stage. He won't be able to pass it. With the God-destroying shield, he can use its power to suppress this place. It won't be difficult for him to endure for 17 days. In the past, when I tried to challenge the second stage with my cultivation base at the quasi-saint realm, I could only endure for 14 days. I couldn't make it to the end. If it wasn't for the third barbarian god who saved me, this stage would certainly be my burial ground. Shi Zihua peaked at the second stage with complicated feelings. Ning Fan was the Tai Tsung tribulation spirit. Originally, she wished that Ning Fan would die. However, Ning Fan inherited the fragment of the god-destroying shield and became the inheritor of the Dao barbarian lineage. Moreover, he was acknowledged by the Dao barbarian mountain. The god-destroying shield was not only a heaven-opening treasure with immense power but also the symbol of the inheritor of the Dao barbarian lineage. The person who possesses this item has the right to kill and punish any barbarian. Even the barbarian god would be punished by the god-destroying shield if he or she makes a mistake. The person who possesses this item can once again suppress the luck of the barbarian race. This was also the most crucial point as it was related to the rise and fall of the barbarian race. The Dao barbarian mountain had yet to tell Ning Fan about these things. Instead, he was waiting for Ning Fan to discover the meaning of the god-destroying shield on his own. The samsara power in this place will become stronger as time passes. The 6th day is already the limit for me to stay here. If the samsara power gets stronger in a few more days, I'm afraid I will die here. Ning Fan sighed softly. With his current cultivation base, it was really a little difficult for him to pass the second stage. Fortunately, he had the protection of the god-destroying shield. The more dangerous the situation was, the more he could feel how strong the shield was. The fragment of the god-destroying shield was extremely intelligent. As soon as it sensed that Ning Fan could not withstand the samsara power in this place, it actually released a force on its own and easily blocked the samsara power in this place 10 zhang away from him. Even without summoning the god-destroying giant, the shield was still so powerful. It really surprised Ning Fan. With this treasure, it was really not difficult for him to endure for 17 days in this place. As for him, he had spent 6 days but he still could not find the end of this dark land. He could not get out of this place. I'm afraid that I won't be able to get out of this place even if I search for 17 days. Ning Fan thought to himself. Anyway, with the protection of the god-destroying shield, it is not difficult for me to stay here for 17 days. It seems like there is no need for me to continue searching this dark land. As soon as this thought appeared in Ning Fan's mind, a voice resounded in his mind like a plea. My soul is in my hand. Find him. Find my soul. I am the 6th fragment. I have a soul. After I die, my soul will return to the mountains and seas. Find my soul. I am the real god-destroying shield. My soul is in my hand. The edge of my palm. That voice was actually produced by the god-destroying shield. It was not a voice that could be heard by the ears. Instead, it was a voice that came from the soul. Before Ning Fan comprehended the mountain and sea incantation, he could not hear such a soul voice. Now, however, he could hear it. With his Tao comprehension, he could communicate with the mountains, the seas, and all the inanimate objects in this world as long as the other party is willing to. Be it the mountains or the seas, as long as there is a soul, he could hear the other party's voice. This was the great Tao of nature of the barbarians. Of course, not every barbarian cultivator could achieve this. Those who could cultivate the mountain and sea incantation were the young barbarian cultivators. Only the young minister of barbarian tribes could communicate with nature, and there were only a few among the young minister of barbarians. Ning Fan, however, was able to do it. He could be considered as a heavenly genius. The soul voice of the god-destroying shield was begging Ning Fan to find his lost soul. It kept telling Ning Fan, the soul is in my hand. The edge of my palm, the soul is in my hand. The edge of my palm. What does it mean? Ning Fan frowned slightly. He did not mind helping the god-destroying shield to find his lost soul. However, he could not understand what the god-destroying shield was saying. The soul is here. This time, the god-destroying shield changed the way it said it. Ning Fan finally understood what it meant. The soul of the God-destroying shield was lost in this dark place. Since I have to stay here for 17 days, I might as well find the soul of the God-destroying shield here. However, I do not know where it is. The soul is in my hand. The edge of my palm, the soul is in my hand. The edge of my palm, the God-destroying shield did not have any spiritual intelligence. It could only instinctively send out the soul voice to remind Ning Fan. Ning Fan suddenly felt helpless. Communicating with the God-destroying shield was like talking to a babbling infant. It was extremely strenuous. Even though barbarians could communicate with the mountains and seas, the mountains and seas were not humans after all. Their intelligence was not on the same level. Ning Fan shook his head. It doesn't matter if I don't understand it. I'll just casually look for it in this place first. Ning Fan continued to search in this place. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. He had already flown in this dark place for 9 days. On the 9th day, Ning Fan still could not find the soul of the God-destroying shield. He also could not find the end of this dark place. Is this dark place really so vast? For the first time, doubt appeared in Ning Fan's eyes. He had continued flying for 9 days and 9 nights. However, he had a strange feeling. It was as if he had been going in circles on the same spot for the past 3 days. He did not move too far away at all. In the darkness, he saw a magic power imprint that was shining brightly. That made him even more convinced of his guess. While moving forward in this dark place, Ning Fan would leave some magic power imprints along the way from time to time. He kept moving forward in a straight line. However, after flying for 9 days, he saw the magic power imprint that he left on the first day ahead of him. Could it be that I am really going in circles in this dark place? Perhaps this place is not really vast. Instead, there is some kind of power that prevents people from walking out of this place. That's why people are unable to walk out of this place. After pondering for a while, Ning Fan changed his direction and flew in another direction. On the 11th day, he once again encountered the imprint that he left in the past. He changed his direction again. On the 13th day, he returned to the same spot. Is this young man unable to walk out of this place? Dao Man Shan sighed softly. If he cannot walk out of this place, he would not be able to find the soul of the God-destroying shield. If he cannot find the soul of the God-destroying shield, he will not be able to restore the might of the shield to its peak even if he collects all of its fragments. If this young man cannot find the soul of the shield, I will have to help him personally. Dao Man Shan thought to himself. This is samsara. No matter where I go, I will always return to the starting point. Because it is impossible to change. This is samsara. Shi Zihua let out a faint sigh. It was already the 13th day. It seemed like Ning Fan could not walk out of this place with his own strength. Without the God-destroying shield, he should not be able to pass the second stage with his own strength. With his current cultivation base, he could only stay in this place for 6 days. It was not enough for him to pass the second stage. Besides, he could not find a way to leave this place either. To this young man, the second stage seems to be a little too early. From the 13th day onwards, Ning Fan no longer blindly moved forward in this dark place. Instead, he stopped. Moving forward aimlessly would only make him go around in circles. There was no meaning to it. The soul is in my hand. The edge of my palm, the soul is in my hand. The edge of my palm. The God-destroying shield was still repeating those 2 sentences foolishly. It made Ning Fan feel helpless. He could not understand those 2 sentences at all. I will pass the second stage in another 4 days. It seems like I will also lose the chance to find the soul of the God-destroying shield. The reason why I got lost is because of the darkness in this place. What will happen if I sweep away the darkness in this place? The reason why this place is dark seems to be intentional. It doesn't want me to see some things in this place clearly. With my current cultivation base, it is not enough to sweep away the darkness in this place. However, if I pay some price, I should be able to do it in a short period of time. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with determination. Finding the soul of the shield seemed to be a great opportunity. In order to obtain this opportunity, he did not mind paying some price. He suddenly hammered his chest with his fists. Enduring the intense pain, he coughed out 12 mouthfuls of blood essence in a row. Instantly, his chi became much weaker. With the power of the 12 mouthfuls of blood essence, Ning Fan pointed his finger at the sky. The black and red flames of the evil beast immediately covered the entire heaven and earth. They burned fiercely and the light of the flames soared to the sky. There were even sounds of wind and thunder that pierced the ears. The flames of the evil beast were originally not enough to illuminate the darkness in this place. Ning Fan had tried this several times before. However, after absorbing the power of the blood essence, he was able to achieve this. The soaring flames gradually tore apart the darkness. With the help of the flames, Ning Fan finally saw the true appearance of this dark land. His heart was filled with shock. The place where he was standing was not a piece of land at all. It was obviously an incomparably huge palm which was as vast as the entire continent. The wrist of the gigantic palm seemed to have been cut off by some sharp weapon. Blood was still flowing out of the wound. After countless years, the blood had lost all of its spiritual nature. However, it was still flowing. The dripping sound that Ning Fan heard just now was the sound of blood dripping from the broken palm. The crisscrossing ravines were the palm lines on the broken palm. The samsara power that lingered in this place was flowing out from the palm lines. Ning Fan's speed was very fast. Even though the broken palm was extremely vast, theoretically, he would only need a few breaths to fly out of the range of the broken palm. However, no matter how far he flew, he would never be able to see the edge of the broken palm. The broken palm seemed to keep growing bigger as he flew. He could neither fly nor escape from it. It was as if he was just a fly and the palm that trapped him was the entire world. Whose broken palm is this? With just a broken palm, it was enough to imprison Ning Fan, whose cultivation base was close to the immortal venerate realm. This kind of strength was truly terrifying. Ning Fan carefully sensed it. Finally, he sensed a trace of Dao Man Shan's chi from the broken palm. Perhaps, this broken palm is Dao Man Shan's palm. Then, isn't the blood flowing in this place the blood of a saint? Unfortunately, the blood seemed to have lost all of its spiritual nature. It was useless now, the soul is in the palm. At the edge of the palm, the God-exterminating shield's silly voice rang again. This time, Ning Fan understood what it meant. The soul of the God-exterminating shield must be at the edge of this broken palm. As long as I can get out of this palm, I will certainly be able to find the soul of the God-exterminating shield. However, he was trapped in the palm. How was he going to break free? How was he going to get out of this place? The light of the fire of the adversity beast was gradually swallowed by the darkness, and the world once again fell into darkness. In the darkness, Ning Fan closed his eyes for the first time. Since his eyes were useless, why should he use them? There was no way to get out of this place as it was a saint's trap. If one wanted to get out, they would have to use all their strength and only then would there be a slim chance of success. On the 14th day, Ning Fan stood still like a statue. On the 15th day, Ning Fan still did not move. On the 16th day, he still did nothing. He was secretly calculating something in his heart. He activated the secret of the word force to the extreme, causing the forces of heaven and earth to move according to him. It has already been 16 days. Has this young man still not given up yet? Shi Zihua shook her head gently. She no longer held any hope for Ning Fan to walk out of this place alive. On the 17th day, Ning Fan finally opened his eyes. His expression was resolute as if he had made up his mind. Divide. As soon as Ning Fan uttered a word, a copy of himself who looked exactly the same as him walked out of his body. That Ning Fan's entire body was shrouded in black chi which was filled with the power of an ancient devil. It had 6 wings on its back and a devil horn on its head. Its body was covered in scales. It was actually Ning Fan's clone that was formed from the devil Dao that he had cultivated throughout his life. Ning Fan rarely used cloning abilities. However, it did not mean that he did not know how to do it. On the contrary, when he was at the harmonious spirit realm, he was already able to create clones. He had once created 2 clones, by Fan and Mo Ning. The reason why he created an ancient devil clone at this moment was naturally to deal with the current situation. As soon as the ancient devil clone appeared, it did not say anything. It immediately turned into a ray of devil light and dashed towards the east, trying to get out of the range of the broken palm. Divide again. Ning Fan used another ability and created an ancient god clone from his body. The ancient god clone was enshrouded in the will of rain and emitted a threatening divine light. As soon as it appeared, it immediately flew towards the west. Ancient demon clone, appear. Another Ning Fan who wore black robes and had runes on his face walked out of his body. There was a hint of purple on his black robes. It was none other than Ning Fan's ancient demon clone. As soon as the ancient demon clone appeared, it directly turned into a Fuli demon butterfly and flew towards the north. The continuous creation of the ancient devil, ancient god and ancient demon clones was extremely taxing on Ning Fan. However, it was not the end yet. Ning Fan took a deep breath. Then, he created another clone which was shrouded in red light from his body. This clone was his tribulation spirit clone. It was also the strongest clone among his 4 great clones. As soon as the tribulation spirit clone appeared, it immediately flew towards the south. There were clones flying in 4 different directions. After Ning Fan's true body created the 4 great clones, he seemed to have lost all of his cultivation base. He stood on the same spot like a mortal. However, he opened his eyes which shone with green light as if he was plotting something. Does this young man think that he can escape from my broken palm just by creating 4 clones? Dao Man Shan shook his head in disappointment. If Ning Fan only has this little bit of ability, he would not be able to get out of this place. At first, he thought that Ning Fan had found a way to get out of this place after planning for a few days. Unexpectedly, after waiting for this young man for a few days, all he got was a clone technique. The 4 clones flew in different directions but none of them could get out of the range of the broken palm. This broken palm was simply boundless, split. Ning Fan uttered another word. His 4 great clones actually split into 2 and then from 2 into 4. In an instant, there were millions of clones flying in countless directions. To low-level cultivators, transforming into 1 million clones was considered a peerless ability. However, it was not difficult for him to use it after his cultivation base had reached this level. Transforming into 1 million clones, huh? With just 1 million clones, I won't be able to get out of this place. Even if I transform into 10 billion clones, the result will still be the same. Dao Man Shan shook his head and said. However, at the next moment, Dao Man Shan's eyes widened in shock. At this moment, Ning Fan's 1 million clones suddenly acted crazily. All of them raised their fingers and pressed down on the broken palm in all directions. Each of Ning Fan's clones was displaying the heaven sealing technique. The 1 million Ning Fan's clones attacked at the same time. Clearly, they wanted to use the heaven sealing technique to stop Dao Man Shan's broken palm. It's actually the chaotic Kun sacred sect's reincarnation sealing technique. No. It's not the real reincarnation sealing technique. This technique just looks like it. It doesn't have the power to seal the reincarnation sealing technique. Dao Man Shan's eyes narrowed. He realized that he had underestimated Ning Fan from the beginning until the end. Even though this technique was not the reincarnation sealing technique of the chaotic Kun sacred sect, it was still very extraordinary. If Ning Fan's 1 million clones were to display this technique, it would probably be able to stop the broken palm for a moment. The 1 million clones that Ning Fan had created each took a direction and secretly coordinated with each other. When the heaven sealing technique was linked together, it was like a formation that greatly increased the power of the technique. If it wasn't for that, Ning Fan certainly would not be able to stop the palm of a saint with his current cultivation base, even if it was just a broken palm that had existed for countless years and had lost all of its spiritual nature. This young man's understanding of formations must also be extremely profound. Ordinary immortal venerables from the ancient times would definitely not be able to stop the broken palm, not even for a moment. Only this young man. Seal. As Ning Fan shouted, he activated the 1,000,000 heaven sealing technique to its maximum. At this moment, Ning Fan forcefully performed the technique and stopped the broken palm for a moment. However, he also suffered a severe backlash. Each of his clones could not withstand the backlash and collapsed one after another. Their cultivation bases gradually returned to Ning Fan's body. However, those injuries were also brought back to Ning Fan's body, making him feel like his body was on the verge of collapsing. Unfortunately, the God-vanquishing shield had its own undying power. As soon as it noticed that Ning Fan was injured, it automatically protected his soul and physical body from being destroyed. If it wasn't for that, Ning Fan's action of forcefully stopping the broken palm of a saint would at least destroy half of his physical body. Ning Fan's 1,000,000 clones collapsed and his cultivation base returned to him. He did not even have the time to wipe the blood from his mouth. Instead, he turned into a ray of golden light and flew towards a certain direction. At the moment before the broken palm regained its mobility, Ning Fan flew out of the prison of the broken palm. Then, he saw a trace of soul at the edge of the broken palm. It was the indistinct soul of the shield. It was illusory but extremely bright, like the brightest star in the sky. Even the darkness of this place could not devour its light. This was the soul of the God-vanquishing shield. Ning Fan had a premonition that once he obtains this soul, the God-vanquishing shield would undergo some kind of qualitative change. This young man actually managed to escape from the broken palm of the Tao barbarian with his cultivation base, which is not even at the immortal venerable realm. Shi Zihua was so shocked that she could not close her mouth. Even though she had the cultivation base of a quasi-saint, she could not escape from the prison of the Tao barbarian's broken palm. However, Ning Fan did it. He stopped the broken palm for a moment even though he was severely injured. This young man's abilities are unimaginable. His ruthlessness and decisiveness are even more unexpected. What a terrifying junior. Chapter 940. The mountain had a soul. If the soul scattered, it would become a barren mountain, not even a blade of grass would grow. The sea had a soul. If the soul was scattered, it would become a dead sea. The fish and dragons would no longer exist. The God-exterminating shield also had a soul. However, that soul was dispersed when the shield was broken. The soul was in his hand, at the edge of his palm. At this moment, the soul of the shield was right in front of him. Soul, my soul, Mrs. Soul, return. Soul, return. The fragment of the God-exterminating shield in Ning Fan's body let out a soul voice of longing. Suddenly, it turned into a ray of light and flew out of Ning Fan's body, heading towards the soul of the shield. It was as if they were finally reunited after millions of years of separation. At the edge of the broken palm, in the boundless darkness, the two slowly fused together, becoming one again. The fusion process was calm and quiet, but Ning Fan could clearly feel that the sixth fragment of the shield's soul was different from before. Even though the sixth fragment possessed unparalleled power, it gave off a feeling of lifelessness. But at this moment, the God-vanquishing shield had a soul. The divine radiance was no longer dim, and it gained some spirituality. After a long time, the soul fusion was complete. The sixth fragment no longer emitted any soul voice. Instead, it slowly flew back to Ning Fan's side and hovered around his body like a cheerful child. Although it didn't speak, Ning Fan could sense its gratitude from its behavior. The shield also had emotions. It was grateful to Ning Fan for helping it find its soul, allowing it to be complete bit by bit. Ning Fan smiled faintly. He opened his mouth and swallowed the sixth fragment back into his body, keeping it in his dantian. He liked creatures that knew gratitude, even if they were just a shield. Furthermore, he had a vague feeling that the sixth fragment of the shield's soul had undergone some sort of qualitative change and gained some sort of ability, although he didn't know what it was exactly. Not bad, you did not disappoint this old man's expectations. You have indeed walked out of the broken palm seal. Very good. As Dao Man Shan's voice resounded, the surrounding darkness disappeared. The scenery of the fifth level of the ancient barbaric tomb gradually appeared before Ning Fan's eyes. At the same time, the stairway to the sixth level appeared, as well as countless silver chests floating in the air. There weren't many silver chests, only 42 of them. They were all open, and the contents inside could be clearly seen. In the box, it was not the relics of the saints that had appeared on the fourth floor. Instead, it was filled with wooden tablets similar to life tablets. However, they were slightly different from life tablets. Among the 42 wooden tablets, 29 of them had been broken into halves. Only 13 of them were still intact. Are these wooden tokens the reward for clearing the second stage of the Barbarian Dao test? Logically speaking, the rewards for the second stage of the Barbarian Dao test should be more valuable than the rewards for the first stage. Could these wooden tablets be more valuable than the heaven-opening spirit Ganoderma? Come here, I will introduce you to these, Barbarian Soul Tokens. When Ning Fan heard what Dao Man Shan said, he followed Dao Man Shan to the altar. He suppressed the doubts in his heart and listened to Dao Man Shan's introduction. It would have been better if he hadn't heard it, but after hearing it, he couldn't help but be shocked. The Dao Berserker's Soul Order was a unique plate, and only the gods of Berserkers knew how to create it. Each soul order had the life soul of a powerful cultivator sealed in it, and there were special runes planted on it. As long as he had the corresponding soul order, he could easily control that person's life or death, and make that person submit to him as a slave. In short, the reward for clearing the second stage of the Barbarian Dao test was not an inanimate object but a living slave. When I was alive, I had once conquered the heavens and subdued 42 saints as my servants, planting soul tokens in them. It has been many years since my death. Among those saints, 29 of them have already died. There are still 13 of them alive in the ancient barbarian world, waiting for the true inheritors of the Barbarian Dao test to return. Their soul tokens are here. Since you've passed the second stage of the Barbarian Dao test, I will give you a saint servant. Ning Fan could not help but feel shocked. Passing the second stage of the Barbarian Dao test would actually allow him to obtain a saint servant. Making a dignified third step saint as his servant was really too generous. There was not a single saint in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds. Be it ancient chaos or undying, none of them were able to step into the saint realm. As for Ning Fan, he had the chance to obtain a saint servant today. How could he not be shocked? It's too early for you to be happy. If I'm not mistaken, you shouldn't be a cultivator from the mortal world or the defying earth realm, let alone a cultivator from the ancient sacred sect. Am I right? Dao Man Shan's eyes turned slightly serious as if he could easily see through all of Ning Fan's secrets. Mortal world. Defying earth realm. Ancient sacred sect. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with a hint of confusion. He simply knew nothing about these terms. You don't know? Sure enough, I'm not mistaken. You're a cultivator from the illusory dream world. However, I don't know which immortal sovereign dreamt of you and which illusory dream world are you in. Dao Man Shan sighed softly. In the era where he lived, immortal sovereign Zido had yet to attain the Dao. Thus, he was not familiar with the chi of immortal sovereign Zido's dream world and could not see through where Ning Fan was. What is the illusory dream world? Judging from Senior's tone, it seems like there are many places in the illusory dream world and not just one place. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. He had heard the name of the illusory dream world from many old monsters. Those people often called the world he was in as the illusory dream world. Ning Fan had no idea what the illusory dream world was. However, it seemed like he could get an answer from Dao Man Shan today. You're a cultivator from the illusory dream world. It's not strange that you don't know what the illusory dream world is. There are many worlds in this universe. Among them, only 3 great worlds are real. The first is the mortal world. It's the place where the grand firmament tribulation spirit reincarnates. The second is the defying earth realm. It's the place where the cultivators who defy the mortal world go to reincarnate. The third is the myriad heavens where the ancient sacred sect is located. Other than these 3 worlds, all the other worlds are fake. They are all worlds that are formed in the dreams of 4th step cultivators. The illusory dream world isn't a real world. It's fine if the cultivators who live in it are from the outside world. However, if they are the local cultivators, they are not real people. They are just illusions. They are the phantoms in the dreams of 4th step cultivators. An immortal sovereign can create countless illusory dream worlds in his or her lifetime. Other than the 3 great true worlds, there are countless illusory dream worlds. Illusory people will never be able to cultivate to the grand perfection realm. They will also never be able to break through to the 3rd step. Of course, there are also exceptions. As he spoke until here, Dao Man Shan seemed to have thought of something in the past. His expression was filled with disappointment. As for Ning Fan, his heart was filled with waves of shock. Today, he had finally come into contact with the greatest secret of the 4 heavens and 9 heavens. The reason why the 4 heavens and 9 worlds was called the illusory dream world was because it was a world that was created by a 4th step cultivator in a dream. All of the local living beings in it were illusions. They were all phantoms in the dreams of 4th step immortal sovereigns. They did not really exist. Phantoms. They are actually phantoms. All of us cultivators in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds are actually phantoms in someone else's dream. Is this real? How is this possible? This kind of ancient secret is really unbelievable. Ning Fan had never thought that he would be an illusion in the dream of some supreme 4th step cultivator, the path that he had walked, the Tao that he had cultivated and the people that he loved. Are all of them fake? Everything is just a dream. Ever since he stepped onto the path of Tao cultivation, his Tao heart rarely wavered. However, at this moment, his Tao heart trembled slightly. Any cultivator would be shocked when they suddenly heard that they were just an illusory existence. Ning Fan was not an exception either. Soon, however, Ning Fan steadied his Tao heart and regained his composure. He did not doubt the authenticity of Dao Man Shan's words, but he would not believe it completely either. Moreover, so what if he is really an illusion in the illusory dream world? So what if the entire world is just a dream of a 4th step cultivator? Whether it is real or fake, he had been cultivating for many years. What he cultivated was the word, truth. However, he could not see through the 2 words truth and illusion anymore. The more he saw it, the more he could not understand it and the more he felt lost. In this world, what exactly is real and what is fake? Is the dream fake? Or perhaps, the dreamer is the fake one? Who is the real one? Who is the real one? It's hard to say, who is whose reflection is on the water. It's hard to say, between life and death, which side is the real one living. It's hard to say, what is real and what is fake. It's hard to say. Ning Fan only knew that the feelings that he had experienced were real. The kindness that he had received was real. The warmth that he had felt before was real. If he felt that it was real, then it was real. Truth and illusion could be decided in a single thought. He was a cultivator and a person who had comprehended the truth. His heart would not be shaken forever just because of the words of others. Senior, are you saying that I came from the illusory dream world of a 4th step immortal sovereign? That place is just a dream. And I don't really exist. Ning Fan took a deep breath and his tone returned to its original calmness. If all of this is real, then the 4th step cultivator who created the 4 heavens and 9 worlds in his dream is most likely immortal sovereign Zido. If all of this is real, the reason why there is no saint in the 4 heavens is probably because all living beings are illusions. How can an illusory person cultivate to the great perfection realm? However, Dao Man Shan said that there are exceptions. Will I never be able to cultivate to the great perfection realm in my life? Or perhaps, I will also be one of those exceptions. Ning Fan shook his head and suppressed this unrealistic thought. To him, becoming a saint was still very far away. The current him did not need to worry about these problems at all. Daoman Shan's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at Ning Fan meaningfully and said, "Your temperament isn't bad. Many cultivators of the illusory dream realm will have their Tao heart waver when they suddenly hear that they are an illusory existence. Some of them even go mad and give up on themselves. As for you, you don't seem to care about whether your body is real or fake. Actually, whether it's real or fake, is it really important to us cultivators? Hee. You don't have to belittle yourself. You come from the illusory dream realm. I won't be wrong about this. It's because you don't have the breath of the true world in your soul. You are a human created by the immortal sovereign in his dream. However, who says that a person created in a dream is not a human? Must a human be created by the intercourse of yin and yang? For us cultivators, as long as our cultivation base is high enough, we can give life even if we pick up a piece of soil. If we say it's a human, then it's a human. Whether it's real or fake isn't important. What's important is how you view it. Let's stop talking about the illusory dream realm. I don't care which illusory dream realm you come from. It's just that there's a problem that gives me a headache. My original intention of giving you the servant of a saint is to protect you. Unfortunately, all my servants are in the ancient barbarian world, which is located in the cold mountain region of the mortal world. As for the place where you are, it seems to be blocked by some kind of extremely powerful force which prevents it from connecting to the true world. If you stay in the illusory dream realm, you won't be able to use the soul order and you won't be able to summon the saint servant that I gave you unless you can walk out of this illusory dream realm and come to the true world. Daoman Shan looked at the countless boxes of silver pitifully. There were 13 barbarian soul orders that he left behind. Among these 13 soul orders, 9 of them were the primordial saint soul orders and 3 of them were the nirvana saint soul orders. The last one was the soul order of a half-step desolate saint realm expert. If Ning Fan could leave the illusory dream realm and enter the true world, he could easily summon a saint servant with the soul order that he gave him. Unfortunately, the illusory dream world that Ning Fan was in had a very strong barrier. He did not know which immortal sovereign had created the illusory dream world. Without the permission of the celestial emperor, even some fourth-step cultivators would not be able to force their way into this realm. Naturally, his saint servants would not be able to enter this realm. After his death, such a powerful immortal emperor actually appeared in the later generations. It's truly terrifying. He wanted to give Ning Fan a saint realm servant. Unfortunately, these soul medallions seemed to be useless unless Ning Fan could walk out of that illusory world. Forget it, I will introduce these soul order tokens to this child first. This soul order token seals the life soul of the Borer Zerg race's primordial saint, Saint Tai Bai. This soul order seals the life soul of the Nirvana saint of the Cold Sect, Sect Master Feng Tian. This soul command, the origins of the soul orders were told by Daoban Shan. Ning Fan's expression changed from the initial shock to a bitter smile. The reward of the second stage of the barbarian Tao was definitely generous. Was a saint-level servant not considered generous? If he could take one of them with him, he would be the supreme being in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds. The 10 great secret clans would have to stand aside. Unfortunately, he was in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds and could not walk out of this realm. Even if he chooses one of these soul orders, he would not be able to summon those saints to be his servants. These soul orders were not practical at all unless Ning Fan could walk out of the 4 heavens and 9 worlds and arrive at the 3 great true worlds where the ancient barbarian world was located. If he could, Ning Fan would rather use these saint soul orders to exchange for the 8th tribulation puppet in the first stage. Even if its durability was not enough, he could still use it immediately. The last soul order token seals the life soul of a half-step desolate saint. His name is Lan Daofeng. He is the sect master of the 4 saints sect. Ning Fan listened to Daoban Shan's introduction expressionlessly. The soul order token of a half-step desolate saint sounded very powerful. Unfortunately, it was useless if he could not walk out of the illusory world. Can I use the reward of the second stage to exchange for the items of the first stage? Ning Fan asked with a bitter smile. No. I'm not the real Dao Ban Shan. I'm just the shadow of the mountains and seas that Dao Ban Shan left behind after his death. Even though I've inherited part of his memories and emotions, I can't change the rules that he set before his death. You can only get one reward for each stage. I can't give you the other items nor can I change the fixed rewards. Dao Ban Shan shook his head and said. Fine. Since that's the case, I'll choose this half-step Desolate Saint Soul Order. Lan Dao Feng, huh? I didn't expect that I would have a half-step Desolate Saint Realm Saint as my servant before attaining the third step. I should be satisfied. In the end, Ning Fan chose Lan Daofeng's Soul Order and kept it casually. The Soul Order token was not a reward that satisfied him. Fortunately, he had found the soul of the God Exterminating Shield in the second stage. Thus, he did not gain anything. Dao Barban Shan looked at Ning Fan with a strange expression. His thoughts seemed to be unable to keep up with the young man in front of him. Third step saints were transcendent beings. They would rarely rely on others. Even immortal sovereign Zido only had 400 saints as his subordinates. Moreover, these 400 saints had great freedom. They could listen to orders or not. If there was nothing important, they would not be seen at all. Dao Barban Shan's cultivation base was at the peak Desolate Saint Realm when he was alive. He could even fight against a fourth-step Saint Realm expert with the God Exterminating Shield. However, even he had only subdued 42 Saint Realm servants in his entire life. Obtaining a half-step Desolate Saint Realm servant for no reason was enough to make any old monster in the true world below the fourth step green with envy. However, Ning Fan still wanted to use the Soul Order token to exchange for a mere 8th Tribulation Immortal Emperor puppet. If Lan Daofeng knew that he was not even comparable to an 8th Tribulation Immortal Emperor puppet in Ning Fan's eyes, he would probably vomit blood out of anger. The second stage has ended. It's time to go to the third stage. It won't waste too much time. To you, the third stage is the easiest one. Of course, there's a precondition for all of this and that is to find the shield soul. In the second stage, you chose to walk out of the broken palm and find the shield soul. This decision is very wise. The third stage is called the Divine Ascension stage, Dao Barban Shan said meaningfully and brought Ning Fan to the 6th level of the ancient barbaric tomb. As Dao Barban Shan pointed with his finger, the shadow of an ancient tall platform appeared between heaven and earth. It gradually became tangible. The tall platform meandered all the way up. On both sides of the path, ancient barbaric statues that were as large as small mountains were kneeling. At the end of the tall platform was a majestic altar. There was also an ancient tablet standing at the top of the altar. There were 9 names on the ancient tablet. All of them were written in the ancient barbaric script. Ning Fan had stayed in the ancient barbaric region for many years after all. Even though he was not proficient in the ancient barbaric script, he still knew some of it. The first name among the 9 names was obviously Dao Barban Shan. The 4th name was Shi Zihua. The 7th name was Ta Gu. The 9th name was Mo. The 10th name was still empty. This is the Divine Ascension stage of my Dao Barbarian tribe. Those who ascend to the Divine Ascension stage will become the Barbarian God of my Dao Barbarian tribe. You can carve your name on the Dao Barbarian tablet. Those who ascend to the Divine Ascension stage would become the Barbarian God. Becoming the Barbarian God was the reward for completing the third stage of the Dao Barbarian test. Of course, not every Barbarian God had gone through the 3 stages of the Dao Barbarian test. The Divine Ascension stage would not only appear in the third stage. Most of the other Barbarian gods would need to go through hundreds and thousands of trials before they could ascend to the Divine Seat. Ning Fan was the only one who was different. He was the one who went all the way to the third stage of the Dao Barbarian test. He had the chance to reach the heavens in a single bound and become the 10th barbarian god in the history of the ancient barbarian world. After ascending to the Divine Ascension stage, Ning Fan would be known as the supreme existence in the history of the barbarian race. If Ning Fan becomes the barbarian god, he would have the authority to command all the barbarian cultivators in the ancient barbarian world. Among those barbarian cultivators, there were even many saints. Ning Fan was not a barbarian cultivator who was born in the ancient barbarian world. Thus, he did not know how honorable the barbarian god was. However, he could imagine some of it. However, he was not willing to become the barbarian god of the barbarian race without knowing why. The identity of the barbarian god not only meant great authority but also the responsibility to revitalize the barbarian race. At the same time, it also involved a great amount of karma. The barbarian race seemed to have a deep karma with the Jialing clan. The higher Ning Fan's cultivation base was, the more he felt that karma was terrifying. He had received a little reward from Mo, but he was already tainted with karma and was nearly killed by the blessing technique. If he becomes the barbarian god of the barbarian race, he did not know what kind of karma he would be tainted with and what kind of trouble he would attract. Ning Fan did not have the leisure to revitalize the barbarian race. He also did not want to be an irresponsible barbarian god without knowing why. Moreover, he did not want to get himself into a huge pile of karma for no reason. For a long, long time, Ning Fan stared at the divine ascension stage in front of him and did not take a step forward. In the end, he sighed softly and asked Dao Man Shan, "If I give up on the third stage, what will happen?" In other words, he was unwilling to become the barbarian god. Dao Man Shan looked at Ning Fan with great surprise as if he did not expect Ning Fan to ask such a question. In the few memories he had, it seemed like every barbarian cultivator was extremely eager to become the barbarian god and possess supreme power. With the position of the barbarian god, one could use the resources of the entire barbarian race for cultivation. He could also command all the barbarian cultivators to go on expeditions. Besides, he could also borrow the luck of the entire barbarian race to increase his chances of breaking through to the third step. No matter if it was someone who was passionate about power or someone who was passionate about cultivation, none of them would reject the position of the barbarian god. However, Ning Fan rejected it. After a brief moment of surprise, Dao Man Shan understood the reason why Ning Fan rejected the position of the barbarian god. His impression of Ning Fan became better. Even though this young man's cultivation base is not high, he could ignore the temptation of the position of the barbarian god. Part of it was his cautiousness of not wanting to be tainted with karma. However, there was also something more important. It was the importance he attached to responsibility. Compared to power and benefits, he seemed to be even more unwilling to bear responsibility easily. This showed that this young man is a responsible person. If he makes a promise, he will definitely fulfill it. If he receives a favor, he will definitely repay it. If this young man becomes the barbarian god, he will certainly not ignore the rise and fall of the barbarian race. Since the fourth generation, the barbarian gods of the barbarian race were getting weaker and weaker. Perhaps the 10th generation could start to revive the barbarian race. Due to Ning Fan's rejection, Dao Man Shan hoped that Ning Fan would succeed the position of the barbarian god even more. Even though the karma of the barbarian race's death had nothing to do with him, it was still a good thing to see the barbarian race that he built with his own hands prosper. Reincarnation is an ability that allows one to see the past and the future. Even though I am just the shadow of a mountain and sea, I can still see some of the past from you. You seem to want to help a barbarian from a certain place regain the right to reincarnation and cultivate. Dao Man Shan's eyes were extremely profound. He seemed to have seen a trace of memories related to Zhao Dai, and the 1 million barbarians from Ning Fan. There is a seed in your body which contains a trace of the will of a fourth-step cultivator in the mortal world. This seed should be able to help you achieve this. However, with your current strength, you are still far from being able to use this seed and control the will of a fourth-step cultivator. I have a way to help you use this seed. However, the prerequisite is that you must obtain the identity of the 10th barbarian god and truly awaken the slaughter and punishment power of the god exterminating shield. If you are unwilling to become the barbarian god, I am also willing to form a good relationship with you and teach you another method. That is to use the seed. However, this method can only be used after you possess the strength of a saint. It is up to you whether you want to become the barbarian god or not. I will not force you. Besides, even if you give up on the third stage, there will not be any punishment. We, the Dao barbarian tribe, do not need an unwilling barbarian god. I hope that you will become the barbarian god, but I hope that you will do it willingly. Ascending to the divine platform and becoming the barbarian god would grant Xiao Dai, and the others the right to reincarnate and cultivate. If I don't become the barbarian god, I must become a saint in order to help Xiao Dai. How long can Xiao Dai, live? Living for a few hundred years is probably her limit. I won't be able to become a saint within a few hundred years. Ning Fan closed his eyes gently and the scenes of him interacting with Xiao Dai, appeared in his mind. Uncle built a snowman for Dai, When Dai, grows up, you must marry me and make me build a snowman every day. Uncle, why do you have so much free time when everyone has work to do? Mother said that this kind of behavior is called gluttony and laziness. When a girl grows up, she shouldn't marry a lazy man. Dai, suddenly doesn't feel like marrying you. Uncle's gaze is very similar to mother's. You are very similar to mother. Uncle must be missing someone in your heart. When Dai, grows up, can you accompany me home? Dai, also wants to see how the barbarian city where it snows all year round looks like. He had watched Xiao Dai, grow up little by little. The relationship between him and Xiao Dai, was just a chance to comprehend the truth. It was just the concern of a senior towards a junior. It had nothing to do with any romantic feelings. However, that concern was like a fetter that he could not let go of. He regarded Xiao Dai, as his nephew. He could not bear to watch her grow old and die. In his mind, the scene of millions of barbarians kneeling down and begging him appeared. Thousands of people kowtowed and their joss sticks were lit. Somehow, he could not get that scene out of his mind. Forget it. Becoming the barbarian god is obviously a great opportunity. Why is it that when it comes to me, I feel like I have suffered a great injustice and am so reluctant, after becoming the young minister of the Fan clan, undergoing the damage tribulation and obtaining the god-exterminating shield? Along the way, the karma between him and the barbarians seemed to have become inseparable. If that's the case, why should I be afraid of another karma? Today, I, Ning Fan, will step onto the divine ascension stage and become the supreme god of the ancient barbarian world. Why can't I? Ta Gu and Yin Mo can sit on the seat of the barbarian god. Why can't I, Ning Fan, sit on it? Ning Fan's eyes flashed with determination. He took his first step towards the divine ascension stage. The moment he took that step, the entire heaven and earth trembled. At the next moment, an illusory, dark red shadow of a barbaric statue appeared in the sky above the 6th level of the ancient barbarian tomb. It held a shield in its left hand and a sword in its right. The shield looked like the god-exterminating shield. That sword pointed at the heavens furiously. It carried an indescribable rebellious intent. The face of the barbaric statue could not be seen clearly. However, it carried an indescribable aura force that was enough to make any cultivator who had yet to step into the 3rd step tremble. Countless smaller barbaric statues appeared around the barbaric statue. They knelt down and worshipped the statue that held the sword. Fight! 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 Let the barbarian god wield his sword and fight against the heavens. Roars that seemed to come from ancient times resounded across heaven and earth. It was as if thousands of troops and horses were charging towards them. As soon as the strange phenomenon and the roars appeared, they began to project and spread to the outside world. Outside the ancient barbarian tomb was the space of the bronze pagoda. Inside the space of the bronze pagoda, the shadow of the barbaric statue that held the shield and pointed the sword at the heavens appeared along with countless figures that knelt down and begged for mercy. Miao Yen was so shocked by the strange phenomenon that she walked out of her cave. However, she did not understand what it meant. Even though she did not understand it, it did not mean that the eyeball monster did not understand it. It had been 17 days since the last time he communicated with Ning Fan using his spirit sense. The eyeball monster was originally very worried about Ning Fan's safety. He was worried that Ning Fan would not be able to get through the 8th suffering. However, when he saw the strange phenomenon in the sky, his face turned pale with fright. All of his worries were replaced by astonishment at this moment. If he was not mistaken, this strange phenomenon was the shadow of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens. Could it be that the 10th barbarian god of the barbarian race is going to be born after Enemo? Fight! 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 Let the barbarian god wield his sword and fight against the heavens. This strange phenomenon is definitely related to that brat Ning Fan. Could it be that the 10th barbarian god who is about to be born is actually that brat? The strange phenomenon continued to project to the outside world. In the space outside the Copper Pagoda, the strange phenomenon of the god of barbarians battling the heavens also appeared. In the Nine Heavens Imperial Court outside the Palm Realm, a strange phenomenon of the god of barbarians fighting against the heavens also appeared. As a matter of fact, after Ning Fan destroyed the stone door of the 8th floor, the entire Nine Heavens Imperial Court had undergone some strange changes. Following the shattering of the stone door, the entire Nine Heavens Imperial Court's palace quickly lost all its pressure. Without the obstruction of the palace's aura, the cultivators who were unable to ascend to the higher floors began to gather on the 9th floor with an unstoppable momentum. The space restriction here had also weakened quite a bit. Even shedding space cultivators could barely fly, but they couldn't fly too fast. The ancient immortal sovereign corpses that were hibernating on the higher levels were nowhere to be found. They no longer stopped the passing cultivators, which made it even more difficult to reach the top. Ha! I can't believe that with my peak Rincon realm cultivation, I can actually ascend to the 9th level and fight for this ancient passage. A Demon Clan burly man excitedly rushed to the 8th floor. He turned into a wisp of gray smoke and sped toward the 9th floor. His divine ability was quite extraordinary. The ancient passage will definitely be obtained by our human race. We will certainly have a battle with the demon race on the 9th floor. Fellow Taoists, you must be careful. A human old monster with a sense-breaking realm cultivation base was followed by several shedding space cultivators. They had actually formed a small team and were advancing cautiously toward the 9th floor. Hee hee. I'm here to fish in troubled waters. I wonder if I can get some benefits after ascending to the 9th floor. Just now, I picked up a 5 million years old basil grass. Just like Mounz, there were also quite a number of cultivators who wanted to pick up some leftovers in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. All of them excitedly rushed to the 9th floor. Nearly 100 experts of the human race and demon race arrived at the 9th floor of the Heavens Imperial Court one after another. There were even more cultivators who were rushing toward this place. It was unknown why there was an additional barrier on the 9th floor. It isolated everyone outside the area of the first palace, preventing them from entering the palace on the higher floors. That barrier was very strong. Colorful rays of light floated on it, making it as beautiful as a rainbow. However, it carried a powerful force that could stop immortal kings from advancing. Fortunately, this colorful barrier would become a little more illusory after every 15 minutes. Its power would decrease by a lot. Presumably, this barrier would not be able to last for too long. It would eventually disappear. As long as they wait for the barrier to disappear, the group of cultivators would still be able to reach the peak of the 9th floor. The 6 combinations Immortal Venerables, Ao Xian and the barbarian ancestors of the Fan clan were currently standing outside the barrier with their guards up. They could not enter the barrier and could only wait for it to disappear on its own. Among the barbarian ancestors of the Fan clan, the 7th ancestor was not outside the barrier. On the side of the human race, Miao Yen and Ning Fan were missing. On the side of the demon race, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon who had already died was missing. Humph. 6 combinations. Don't tell me you want to fight with me before the barrier disappears. Don't forget that I have the Brahma demon Jian with me. Last time, you were almost killed by this Jian. This time, do you want to suffer again? Ao Xian held the Brahma demon Jian in his hand and sneered at the 6 combinations Immortal Venerables. At the same time, he looked at the barbarian ancestors of the Fan clan with fear. The demon race and these barbarian ancestors were originally allies. However, Ao Xian had already noticed that these barbarian ancestors had other plans for the ancient passage. Their relationship as allies was not solid. Even though he was not afraid of 6 combinations, he did not want to fight with him before the barrier disappears. It would give these barbarian ancestors an opportunity to take advantage of him. Humph. Do you think I'm afraid of you just because you have the Brahma demon Jian? Don't forget that we have fellow Daoist Zhao on our side. As soon as Ao Xian mentioned Ning Fan, the 6 combinations immortal venerables became much more confident. He sneered back at Ao Xian. As soon as they heard Zhao Jian's name, be it Ao Xian or the barbarian ancestors of the Fan clan, their expressions changed. Obviously, they still remembered the terrifying ability that Ning Fan used to kill countless ancient immortal venerables. Cold sweat trickled down their foreheads. It's comparable to the attack of a saint. He killed hundreds and thousands of immortal venerables with just a single sword strike. Even if Zhao Jian isn't a saint, he is probably not far from it. 6 combinations is not worth mentioning, but that Zhao Jian is definitely not someone they can afford to offend. I didn't expect that the human race would actually have such a powerful force to intervene in the battle for the ancient passage. Despicable. Really despicable. Could it be that they have forgotten that the ancient passage collapsed because an immortal emperor realm old monster intervened in advance? The more ancient a secret place is, the more vulnerable it is to an immortal emperor realm old monster. The human race, on the other hand, did not send an immortal emperor realm expert this time. Instead, they directly sent someone with such terrifying combat power like Zhao Jian, who is even more ruthless than an immortal emperor realm expert. If the passage collapses again this time, it will be a huge loss to both the human race and the demon race. Despicable humans. Don't you know that going too far is as bad as falling short? Ao Xian cursed in his heart. What made him feel strange was that Zhao Jian should have already brought Miao Yan to the 9th floor by now. Where did they go? Why aren't they here? Could it be that they have entered the barrier? Humph. The human race is actually one step ahead of the demon race. It seems like it won't be easy to seize the ancient passage from the human race this time. Also, where did the 7th ancestor go? Could it be that he has also entered the barrier? The other barbarian ancestors were also secretly guessing. Just as the experts were confronting each other, the strange phenomenon of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens suddenly appeared in the sky of the 9th floor. Fight! 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 Let the barbarian god wield his sword and fight against the heavens. The defying intent contained within those roars was too shocking, causing every single cultivator's heart to beat wildly. They were unable to suppress the shock in their hearts. Lu He, Ao Xian, and the other cultivators did not understand the meaning of this phenomenon. They were only shocked by the unusual aura. Only the barbaric ancestors of the Fan family understood the meaning of this phenomenon. They were shocked and their eyes burned with passion. Gradually, even their breathing began to quicken. It was actually the shadow of the god of berserkers fighting against the heavens. This was an anomaly that would only appear when the god of berserkers was born. The barbarian god. It was actually the barbarian god. Another god of berserkers was born in the ancient berserkers world. As long as one became a barbarian god, even if that person was just a vein opening junior, he could still command the barbarian cultivators of the ancient barbarian realm and easily destroy any cultivation clan below the 3rd step. As long as he became the god of berserkers, he would be able to enjoy the cultivation resources of the entire ancient berserkers world. He would also be able to use the berserkers' luck to cultivate. Even a 3rd step saint had to be wary of the great power behind the god of barbarians. Even 3rd step sages coveted the ancient barbarians' providence. Just who was the lucky one to inherit the title of god of berserkers? How enviable! Every barbarian cultivator had the dream of becoming a barbarian god, just like how every mortal had the dream of becoming an emperor. The expressions of the few barbarian ancestors of the Fan family were filled with envy and jealousy. They could not wait to find the person who became the barbarian god and replace him. Unfortunately, they did not know that the person who was going to become the barbarian god was Ning Fan. If they knew about this, it was unknown how interesting their expressions would be. At the highest point of the 9th floor, countless stone statues stood under the illumination of the gray moon. At this moment, the seventh ancestor was half kneeling in front of the throne of the Ink stone statue, begging for something. As for the Ink stone statue, it was looking at the seventh ancestor coldly as if it was looking at a lowly ant. Speak, seventh generation barbaric ancestor of the Fan family. Why did you sacrifice your second primordial spirit to help me escape? What do you want? Chapter 941. Speak, seventh ancestor of the Fan family. You are willing to give up your second primordial spirit to help me escape. What is your goal? Ancestor Mo's stone body was indifferent. In his eyes, the seventh ancestor of the Fan family was just an ant, not worth mentioning. Fan family? Haha, just a second-rate barbarian tribe of the ancient barbarian world. The seventh ancestor of the Fan family was just an insignificant person. Unlike the lowly Fan clan, Mo was a dignified god of the barbarian race. There were very few people who were worthy of his attention. His every word and action had a superior pressure that came from his bloodline. It put a heavy pressure on the seventh ancestor. Facing the questioning of ancestor Mo, the seventh ancestor did not dare to be disrespectful. He lowered his head even more and answered humbly, I have 3 requests. If you agree to all of them, I am willing to give up this body and become yours to help you escape. I will not regret it. 3 requests. You are just an ant. You want to talk terms with me? Mo's voice was cold, and the temperature dropped. That's right. Even if you are an ant, if you are lucky, you will have the chance to look down on the heavens. Don't you think so, Supreme Divinity? The seventh ancestor raised his head boldly and narrowed his eyes. A dragon in shallow water would be toyed with by prawns. A tiger on flat land would be bullied by dogs. In terms of strength, the seventh ancestor was not as strong as Mo. Even his true self, the immortal emperor, was not Mo's match. In terms of status, the seventh ancestor was just a barbarian ancestor of a second-rate force. Mo, on the other hand, was the high and mighty ninth god of barbarians. He had the power to punish the entire barbarian race and could suppress the seventh ancestor greatly. Ancestor Mo was sealed in the 9 heavens imperial court. Otherwise, as a barbarian, the seventh ancestor would not have dared to speak to Mo in such a tone. The air seemed to freeze. Invisible killing intent brewed around Mo, but it soon subsided. State your request. Mo's voice was emotionless. Seeing that Mo did not flare up, the seventh ancestor did not dare to act rashly again. He resumed his respectful tone. My first request is to take the ancient passage from the 9 heavens imperial court. According to my deduction, there are already more than 100 immortal emperors from the illusory world involved in this matter. With my second primordial spirit body, it is too difficult to snatch food from the hands of these heroes. I need the power of a hierarch to do this. If you manage to escape, you must help me fight for the ancient passage. Ancient passage, huh? Continue, Mo said noncommittally. My second request is related to the immortal force in your body. I was fortunate enough to witness the 6 paths of reincarnation with my own eyes. At this point, there was a hint of pride in the seventh ancestor's eyes. For the first time, Mo took the seventh ancestor seriously. I cannot believe that you have entered the sacred sect's dojo and seen the 6 paths of reincarnation. If that's the case, then I can't call you an ant anymore. You don't have to kneel. In front of this god, I allow you to answer while standing. Thank you, Supreme Divinity, for the reward. The seventh patriarch, who had been half kneeling on the ground, slowly stood up and continued to say. In this world, there are very few secrets that can be hidden from the reverse river beside the 6 paths of reincarnation. The water of inverse river could reflect all things and peep into the past and present. I paid a price in exchange for a secret from the reverse river, the secret of the Supreme Divinity's origin. People only know that the Supreme Divinity's name is Mo and he is the 9th god of barbarians. However, very few people know where the Supreme Divinity came from. However, I know that the Supreme Divinity's true identity is the evil corpse that was cut by the undying Emperor of the Purple Do immortal domain. Moreover, you have the undying void that the undying emperor created. If the supreme divinity manages to escape, you must lend me the undying void for 3,000 years. This is my second request. The undying void. Mo's expression turned slightly gloomy as if he had thought of something bad. After a long time, he said, "Continue." He still did not express his opinion. My third request is to enter the ancient barbarian tomb once. You want to enter the ancient barbarian tomb? Why? Mo was slightly surprised. The ancient barbarian tomb is the place where the previous god of barbarians opened their trials. It is also the place where the corpses of the barbarians who died in battle are kept. What is this person's purpose for entering the ancient barbarian tomb? This time, it was the seventh ancestor who remained silent. He had his own purpose for entering the ancient barbarian tomb and he would not tell Mo about it. The ancient barbarian kingdom's god-exterminating shield. The seventh ancestor recalled the secret that he had obtained from the reverse river and sneered in his heart. After the fourth god of barbarians, the ancient barbarian world submitted to the great Sunction mortal world. The barbarian gods of the later generations did not know that there was a fragment of the god-exterminating shield hidden in the ancient barbarian tomb. However, the seventh ancestor had coincidentally found out about it. The seventh ancestor was determined to get this fragment. These three requests were not difficult for Mo. In order to escape, Mo would most likely agree to these requests, but an undetectable cold light flashed in the seventh ancestor's eyes. In fact, these three requests were just a trick to confuse Mo. His real target was Mo himself. As long as his plan was successful, his second primordial spirit could merge with Mo. At that time, he would be Mo and he would be able to achieve the three requests. How about it? Is the Supreme Divinity willing to agree to my request? The seventh ancestor asked calmly. If I don't agree, what are you going to do? Mo suddenly said mockingly. Don't agree? Doesn't the Supreme Divinity want to escape from this place? The god of barbarian was sealed here by immortal Emperor Zido and lived a life worse than death. Doesn't the Supreme Divinity want to escape from this place and avenge Zido? The seventh ancestor frowned and said. I want to escape from this place even in my dreams. However, there are two things that you are wrong about. Mo's playful voice echoed in the empty stone forest. Suddenly, a ray of starlight appeared in his left eye. In an instant, his left eye became bright as if it contained the entire starry sky. It gave people a profound feeling as if it could see through everything in front of it. His right eye became empty and dark without any spirit. Gradually, his right eyeball shattered and turned into stone chips that fell to the ground. Only the right eye socket was left. Not only that, a stream of black blood flowed out from his right eye socket and dripped on the ground in front of the throne. I have lost one eye and haven't recovered it yet. However, I can still see some clues. Do you think I can't see through your real scheme? You are wrong about this. At this moment, the Mo stone statue only had its left eye. However, it could easily see through all the secrets on the seventh ancestor's body with this eye. The three requests you made are just a pretense. What you are really after is my life. These 7 chess pieces are your secret plan. Humph. The Mo stone statue snorted and immediately, an invisible force enveloped the seventh ancestor. Without any warning whatsoever, the seventh patriarch coughed up a mouthful of blood and was sent flying backward. Furthermore, 7 beams of golden light flew out of his body, beyond his control. If you looked closely, you would see that they were actually 7 golden ghost stones. As soon as they appeared, they began to emit the glow of countless swastikas, giving off a feeling of solemnity and dignity. So they are chess pieces condensed by the power of karma. Moreover, this feeling seems to have fused with the bones of Buddhist cultivators. Buddhist cultivators cultivate the power of karma. This thing is enough to cut off the power of karma of the barbarian god's blessing technique. If I really use the blessing technique to seize your body, I will most likely be plotted against by these 7 chess pieces. Mo said expressionlessly. The seventh ancestor was shocked. He didn't expect that his real scheme would be seen through by Mo so easily. He also didn't expect that Mo could make him vomit blood and fly backwards with just a thought. The 7 golden chess pieces hidden in his body were forced out and revealed themselves. This power had nothing to do with cultivation. It was the suppression of the bloodline. There was no mistake. The thing that sent him flying was the barbarian god Mo's power of slaughter and punishment. Rumor has it that the barbarian god Mo's power of punishment can be ranked in the top 3 of the 9 generations of barbarian gods. He has 2 punishment mountains. With just the power of punishment, he can make barbarian cultivators at the immortal emperor realm yield. However, wasn't he sealed by Zido? He shouldn't be able to use 10% of his power of punishment. How could he send me flying with just 1 strike? The 7th ancestor was shocked. It was obvious that he had missed a lot of things during this trip to the heavenly imperial court. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, the shadows of 3 golden mountains appeared in the sky. As soon as the 3 golden mountains appeared, the 7th ancestor felt that he couldn't win against Mo's stone statue. It's 3 punishment mountains. Not just 2. Ever since the first god of barbarian mountains, only the second god of barbarian has 3 punishment mountains. Moreover, the 3rd punishment mountain is only half formed. It's not complete. Mo actually has 3 punishment mountains. He has surpassed the second god of barbarian. Among all the gods of barbarian in the past, he can be ranked second. It seemed that Mo's cultivation had not decreased during the countless years he was sealed. Instead, it had increased. The 7th ancestor groaned in his heart. He barely managed to stabilize his falling body. He wiped the blood off his face and said anxiously, "Divine Lord, please calm down. I've made a lot of mistakes. I shouldn't have harbored evil intentions towards you. I'm willing to compensate you for this. I've collected some barbarian souls. Although there aren't many of them, only about 700,000 of them, they're all survivors who survived the disaster. Their luck is much stronger than that of normal barbarians. I've spent many years researching an art that returns luck to its origin. As long as I sacrifice these barbarian souls, I can quickly restore my strength to its peak after I escape." Humph. The 7th ancestor received another cold snort from Mo's stone statue. In an instant, the 7th ancestor coughed up blood again and flew backwards. His aura continued to weaken. The 7th ancestor had a lot of methods to protect himself. However, under the attack of Mo's punishment stone statue, he had no power to fight back. As the god of barbarians, he had the power to kill and punish. He could punish any barbarian. This kind of punishment was unavoidable. It was precisely because of the existence of the power of punishment that the god of barbarians could stand high above the masses and not allow any barbarian to disobey him. With great difficulty, the 7th patriarch steadied himself once more. This time, he was not even able to stand. He clutched his chest with one hand and used the other to prop himself up on the ground. He was half kneeling on the ground, coughing up blood. He had actually been seriously injured by the power of punishment. The 7th patriarch cried out anxiously. Mo had once again activated the power of punishment in an attempt to kill him. Cough. Divine Lord, you can't kill me. If you kill me, you won't be able to find another body as perfect as me to perform the blessing technique. The 7th forefather looked up at Mo and forced himself to calm down. He was only the 2nd primordial spirit of the Fate Master Celestial Emperor, so he would not suffer a great loss if he was killed. However, he was unwilling to die here without obtaining any benefits from Mo. He had originally wanted to scheme against Mo, but now that his plot had been exposed, he could only take a step back and abandon this body to help Mo escape. He believed that Mo would not bear to kill him. Mo had been sealed in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court by immortal Emperor Zido for countless years. During this period of time, the 9 Heavens Imperial Court had never appeared in the world, and no one had ever come here. This time, many cultivators had entered the Nine Heavens imperial court, but among these cultivators, there was almost no one who could become the body of Yin Mo's blessing technique. Immortal Emperor Zido was too powerful. With Yin Mo's cultivation, it was almost impossible for him to escape from his seal. The only chance of survival was to find a body and perform the strongest possession technique in the history of the barbarian race, the blessing technique of the barbarian god. This technique uses karma as a medium to carry out the possession technique. If it succeeds, even if this place is sealed by immortal Emperor Zido, the Divine Lord can still escape, abandon his sealed body, and be reborn. However, the prerequisite for the success of this technique is to find a perfect body with a high degree of compatibility. Before the Divine Lord became the barbarian god, he cultivated the cultivation of the barbarian race. After becoming the barbarian god, he received the blessing of Taitsung and possessed the bloodline of the Taitsung tribulation spirit. The Divine Lord cultivated the two powers of tribulation and barbarian at the same time. Therefore, the body that the Divine Lord is looking for to possess must at least have a certain degree of the two powers of tribulation and barbarian at the same time. Now, in the Nine Heavens imperial court, there are only a few cultivators who have the barbarian blood. They are all the ancestors of the Fan clan. Among them, the one with the highest cultivation of the two powers of tribulation and barbarian is the best body for the Divine Lord to possess. Killing this lowly person is definitely not a wise move. Yin Mo looked at the seventh ancestor with disdain. After a long time, he said, "You think that I can't bear to kill you, so you have the guts to plot against me and take my life. You think that even if I see through your plot, I will let go of the past in order to escape. However, you are wrong. From the beginning, I never planned to use your second primordial spirit as a body to possess. I already have the most perfect body for you to possess. You're wrong about this again. Therefore, if you have nothing else to say, you can die now. Burn." As Yin Mo shouted this word, the barbarian blood in the seventh ancestor's body started burning without any warning. Not good. With the cultivation of this body, I can't resist Yin Mo's punishment power. I will die. The seventh ancestor's heart was filled with strong unwillingness, but more than that, he felt powerless. Just when he thought that his blood would burn to death, at the highest point of the Ninth Heaven's imperial court, in the sky above the stone forest, a shocking phenomenon of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens suddenly appeared. Fight! 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 Let the barbarian god wield his sword and fight against the heavens. A murderous punishment power descended from the sky and collided with Yin Mo's punishment power once again, letting out a muffled boom. In the sky above the stone forest, the three golden punishment mountain peaks of Yin Mo were continuously hit by the new punishment power and cracks began to appear. More and more cracks appeared. Finally, the three punishment mountain peaks collapsed at the same time with a bang. The reason why the three mountains collapsed was because they could not withstand the new murderous punishment power. It's the shadow of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens. Once this phenomenon appears, it means that a barbarian god is being born. In the Nine Heavens imperial court, there are 10 barbarian gods being born. How can this be? This person has yet to become a true barbarian god, but the punishment power he possesses is already enough to collapse my punishment mountain. Just how many punishment mountains does this person have? Who is this person? His punishment power is actually still increasing. The shock in Yin Mo's eyes increased. When the shadow of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens first appeared, the new barbarian god's punishment power was already twice of his. As time passed, the punishment power was still increasing. 3 times. 4 times. 6 times. 10 times. 12 times. 12 times of my punishment power. How could such a powerful barbarian god be born after the Dao Barbarian Mountain? Besides, why did this phenomenon appear in this place and why did it have to happen at this time? Yin Mo could not calm down. He no longer had the intention to kill the seventh ancestor. The seventh ancestor was also lucky enough to survive because of this sudden phenomenon. What exactly happened in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and who was going to become the 10th barbarian god? Enmo did not know, and neither did the 7th ancestor. Other than the strange eyeball, who would have thought that the person who was going to become the 10th barbarian god would be Ning Fan? In the space of the copper tower, time was still. 10 years inside the tower was just a moment in the outside world. On the Divine Ascension platform, Ning Fan walked up step by step. The path he walked was the Divine Tao. Wherever he passed by, the barbarian statues that were kneeling on both sides of the Divine Tao stood up. These barbarian statues were very strange. All of them were golden in color. They controlled the golden barbaric flash power and turned them into golden bows and golden arrows. Thousands of arrows were shot at Ning Fan. All of the arrows were wrapped in golden flames. Each of the fire arrows had the destructive power of an immortal venerable. The combined attack of 10 arrows could injure an immortal king. The combined attack of 100 arrows could injure an immortal emperor. Even a quasi-saint would have to retreat when thousands of arrows rained down on Ning Fan. Tens of thousands of arrows were shot at the same time. Killing intent soared to the sky and the weather changed. However, Ning Fan remained calm and did not care about those attacks at all. It was because he had the God-vanquishing shield to protect him. Those who don't have the God-vanquishing shield can also become the barbarian god after ascending to the Divine Tao. However, they won't have too much punishment power. You, on the other hand, are different. Even though you only have one of the fragments of the God-vanquishing shield, it is the one with the strongest spirituality. Moreover, you have found the soul of the shield. With the help of the God-vanquishing shield, you can devour these thousands of arrows and cultivate the punishment power of slaughter that is comparable to mine. Other than me, none of the other 8 barbarian gods possess more than 3 punishment mountains. I'm looking forward to seeing how many of them you can create. The voice of the barbarian mountain rang in Ning Fan's ears. Ning Fan did not say anything else. He did not need to do anything either. He just walked up the Divine Tao step by step. The God-vanquishing shield in his dantian automatically formed the God-vanquishing giant's defense outside his body. Rays of golden arrow light landed on the God-vanquishing giant's body. All of them strangely fused into the giant's body without any exception. It was as if they were being devoured. Everything was silent. The incoming arrow light kept fusing into the giant's body, causing the color of the God-vanquishing giant to be dyed with a hint of gold from its initial dark red color. With the addition of this trace of gold, the God-vanquishing giant gave people an unprecedented sense of majesty. In the sky above, the gigantic shadow of a golden mountain slowly took shape. That was the power that only the barbarian gods could control, the punishment mountain formed by the punishment power of slaughter. After condensing the first punishment mountain, Ning Fan clearly felt that there was an additional power in his body. What kind of feeling is this? It feels like I can easily decide the life and death of a barbarian. To punish any barbarian, punishment of slaughter. Punishment of slaughter, this kind of power had nothing to do with cultivation base or Tao attainment. It was a kind of dominance that a superior could have over an inferior. The Divine Ascension platform was so tall that it reached the heavens. The 4 million steps of the Divine Tao seemed to have no end. The higher he went, the more difficult it became for him to move. He could not move too fast. Ning Fan slowly climbed up, forgetting the passage of time. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Ning Fan actually walked on this long Divine Tao for a total of 12 months before he reached the end. When he reached the end and ascended the Divine Platform, there were already a total of 36 punishment mountains in the sky. The God-vanquishing giant that was protecting his body had completely turned into a dark golden color. It was an ancient golden color like the setting sun in a desert. The originally dark red God-destroying shield had also turned dark gold. The God-vanquishing shield has really been revived, although it's only a fragment. Dao Man Shan revealed a gratified expression and smiled. Next, you only need to carve your name on this heavenly Dao monument, and you will truly become the 10th god of berserkers. From now on, the rise and fall of the barbarians will all fall on your shoulders. Step by step, Ning Fan walked towards the center of the divine platform. When he reached the bottom of the heavenly Tao monument, he halted his footsteps and retracted his god-destroying giant shadow. A ray of golden light flew out from the heavenly Tao monument and turned into a golden carving knife that was a foot long. Slowly, it fell into Ning Fan's palm. Ning Fan stared at the heavenly Tao monument with a solemn expression. That small carving knife seemed to weigh 1,000 jin. He carved his name, and from then on, he became the 10th god of berserkers. From then on, he was a supreme existence. After carving his name, he would have to shoulder the responsibility and bear the karma. From today onwards, I, Ning Fan, am the god of the barbarian race. As long as I'm alive, all lives are alive. This was a promise. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with determination. He lifted the carving knife and carved his name on the heavenly Tao monument. After he carved his name, the heavenly Tao monument along with the entire divine ascension platform disappeared. It would only appear again when the next god of berserkers ascends the platform. No one knew who the new name on the heavenly Tao monument belonged to. However, at this moment, every barbarian in the world could feel that another god of berserkers had been born. So your name is Ning Fan. Hee hee. Let's go, little barbarian god Ning. Let's go to the 7th level of the barbarian tomb and meet the 4th generation ancestor. You have to be careful. She is just a shadow of a mountain and sea now. When she was alive, she only had 2 Xing mountains. She won't be able to withstand the punishment power of your 36 mountains. You better not accidentally kill her. Dao Man Shan warned Ning Fan solemnly. With a wave of his sleeve, he brought Ning Fan to the 7th level of the ancient barbarian tomb. Dao Man Shan had died a long time ago. Only the shadow of the mountain and sea was left. The might of the punishment power was no longer there. However, Ning Fan was different. He entered the 7th level of the barbarian tomb without making a sound. However, the moment he stepped into this level, Shi Zihua's mountain and sea shadow could not help but tremble in her heart. She even had the urge to kneel down in front of Ning Fan. That heaven-shaking and earth-shattering bloodline power did not allow her to stand straight at all. Even if she was a barbarian god, she could not remain standing in front of Ning Fan who had 36 mountains. Humiliation. Humiliation. She had never knelt before anyone, let alone to the Taitsung tribulation spirit. Even if she slightly approved of Ning Fan, she would never kneel to a Taitsung tribulation spirit. My body can be destroyed and my shadow can disappear. However, I will never kneel to this knee. Shi Zihua bit her lips unwillingly. She let the shadow of the mountain and sea disappear bit by bit, but she still refused to kneel. What's wrong with her? Ning Fan had just ascended to become a god. He was still unable to control the additional punishment power. Naturally, he did not know that the punishment power that he unintentionally released had almost driven Shi Zihua to death. Dao Man Shan. Shi Zihua. Little barbarian goddess Ning, are you pretending to be innocent and black-bellied? Chapter 942. After all, Ning Fan was a person who had cultivated for many years. He instantly realized that Zizihua's abnormality was caused by himself. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed and apologized to Zizihua. I'm sorry. This junior has just obtained the power of massacre and punishment. I haven't fully grasped it yet. I've caused senior to be startled. His tone was neither servile nor overbearing, but it was rather polite. Now that they were both gods of the barbarian race, even if there were some misunderstandings between them in the past, Ning Fan was not willing to humiliate this lady here and now. Moreover, Shi Zihua would rather die than kneel before the Taitsung Jialing. Ning Fan was rather impressed by her integrity. That was why he addressed her respectfully as a senior. The 4th god of berserkers was the god of a destroyed kingdom, the god of death, the god of indomitable will. The broken sword stuck in her chest, the blood stains on her dress, the pride that said she would rather die than kneel, the poignant yet unyielding face, the beautiful figure that stood tall in the shattered royal city. All of these scenes were beautiful in a different way. The god of berserkers had died in battle to protect her people. No matter how ugly she was, she could still be considered beautiful. Besides, Shi Zihua was not an ugly woman to begin with. This woman was known as the most beautiful woman in the barbarian race, and she was indeed worthy of her name. Her beauty on the surface was only temporary. Only the beauty in her bones would not fade with time. These thoughts only flashed across Ning Fan's mind. He did not think too much about it. He tried to control the punishment power in his body and suppress the agitated punishment might. Gradually, the punishment might that filled the entire 7th level of the barbarian's grave began to disappear. The might of the punishment of the 36 mountains was not to be underestimated, and it almost directly suppressed Shi Zihua's image of the mountains and seas. When the pressure subsided, Shi Zihua finally felt relieved. Her face was still a little pale. She looked at Ning Fan with a complicated expression. After a long while, she said in an unnatural tone. "Thank you. Who would have thought that there would be a day where she would have to thank a grand firmament tribulation spirit, 36 punishment mountains. What a terrifying junior." In the history of the barbarians, perhaps only the first generation could achieve such a number. Previously, she was Ning Fan's enemy. She even wanted to kill Ning Fan, the grand firmament tribulation spirit, in the ancient barbarian tomb. Today, Ning Fan had dramatically become the barbarian god. Shi Zihua didn't know how to face Ning Fan after the change of their identities. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. Speaking of which, Ning Fan has yet to complete his 8th trial. Should I go easy on him? Let's reintroduce ourselves. This was the 4th god of berserkers, Shi Zihua. He was the 10th barbarian god, Ning Fan. Alright, let's stop chatting here. Ning Shao barbarian god's 8th trial is not over yet. 4th generation king, hurry up and help him reduce his damage. There is one thing you must remember. No matter where little barbarian god Ning comes from, he is now the same as you, a god of our berserker tribe. You must not harbor any enmity towards him. This is an order from this old man, you must obey it. If you disobey my orders and harm him, then I won't mind using the power of my finger to personally wipe out your mountain and sea image. Dao Man Shan looked at Shi Zihua meaningfully and warned. Shi Zihua was Ning Fan's descendant. Due to the hatred he had for the Taitsung tribulation spirit, Ning Fan's 8th trial was obviously much more dangerous and difficult than the others. Even though Ning Fan had rushed all the way to the 7th level of the ancient barbaric tomb, the final calamity of the 8th trial had yet to descend. It was still in Shi Zihua's hands. If Shi Zihua interferes with Ning Fan and summons the strongest calamity at all costs, Ning Fan would have a high chance of dying in the calamity even if he had the protection of the God exterminating shield and the might of the punishment of the 36 mountains. Since Dao Man Shan had promised Ning Fan to protect him, he would certainly keep his promise. He would not allow Shi Zihua to recklessly summon the calamity and kill Ning Fan. He did not expect Shi Zihua to go easy on Ning Fan. All he wanted was for her to be fair and treat Ning Fan equally. If the 8th trial that Shi Zihua summons is at least at the level of an ordinary barbarian cultivator, he believed that Ning Fan would be able to get through it easily. I won't. I know what to do. He has already become a barbarian god. He is the hope of our tribe. I won't harm him anymore. Shi Zihua let out a faint sigh and agreed. Shi Zihua, still knew what to do. She had already seen through Ning Fan's character and innate talent. With Ning Fan around, the barbarian tribe might still have a chance to prosper. Even if Ning Fan is a Taitsung tribulation spirit, she would also try her best to discard her prejudice against him. 10th generation, come closer. Next, I will send you the final calamity of the 8th trial. Shi Zihua wanted to smile at Ning Fan, but she could not do so no matter what. She could try her best to suppress the prejudice in her heart, but she could not disguise herself and give Ning Fan a hypocritical smile. Her hatred towards the Taitsung tribulation spirit had melted into her bones. She could accept Ning Fan psychologically, but she could not smile physically. Senior's hostility towards me seems to be entirely because of my identity as a Taitsung tribulation spirit, right? Ning Fan was not in a hurry to get through the 8th trial. That's right. I do mind your identity as a tribulation spirit. However, since you have already become a barbarian god, I will try my best to discard those prejudices. You don't have to do that. There is one thing that senior might have misunderstood. Even though I possess the tribulation blood, I am not the true Taitsung tribulation spirit. I am a purple dipper cultivator. From a certain point of view, I might be considered as the enemy of the tribulation spirit clan. Ning Fan said indifferently. Divine, demon, devil and tribulation were just his powers. They did not determine his race. If he must put a label on himself, he would put the words Purple Dipper Cultivator on it. He did not know much about the history of the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain. However, he had already made many guesses along the way. The Purple Dipper Immortal Domain should have already been destroyed. The enemy that destroyed the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain was most likely the Tribulation Spirit Clan. He was born in the Rain World. He was a cultivator in Immortal Sovereign Z-Do's dream. He was the successor of Ancient Chaos and he had once regarded Immortal Sovereign Z-Do as his teacher. Without a doubt, Ning Fan was a Purple Dipper cultivator. The Tribulation Spirit Clan that destroyed the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain would only be his enemy. What did you say? You are not the true Taitsung Tribulation Spirit. You are a Purple Dipper cultivator. Shizihua's eyes suddenly lit up. When she died, the ancient barbarian world had completely fallen. At that time, Immortal Sovereign Z-Do had yet to attain his Tao and the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain had yet to be established. However, it did not mean that she did not know much about Immortal Sovereign Z-Do like Daoman Shan. On the contrary, she had always been paying attention to the rise and fall of the barbarian race. Even after countless years had passed since her death, she was still inquiring about the news of the 3 great true worlds. She knew that after her death, the barbarian race had completely become the slaves of the Taitsung Tribulation Spirit. All the barbarian gods in the future had become the servants of the Tribulation Spirit. She had heard that a very powerful Immortal Sovereign Z-Do had appeared in the future. He could even fight to a draw with the legendary strongest being in the mortal world, the Lord of Tribulation Will. With his own strength, Immortal Sovereign Z-Do had killed the 2 Immortal Sovereigns Z-Wei and Bei-Do and unified the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain. Then, he became the strongest being in the defying mortal world, one of the 3 great true worlds. However, some things happened later that caused the entire Purple Dipper Immortal Domain to be destroyed by the invasion of the Tribulation Spirit. The cultivators of the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain were the most courageous group of cultivators in the 3 great true worlds. When the Tribulation Spirit invaded, the entire domain would usually die in battle. It was rare for anyone to surrender. Even if there were cultivators who were lucky enough to survive, all of them would regard the Taitsung Tribulation Spirit as their mortal enemy. They would use all their strength to fight against the Taitsung Tribulation Spirit until the end. They would never compromise. Because of this, even though the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain had been destroyed, the Tribulation Spirit Clan still regarded the cultivators of the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain as their #1 enemy. This young man actually said that he was a cultivator of the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain. He was clearly the mortal enemy of the Tribulation Spirit Clan, but he also possessed the bloodline of the Tribulation Spirit Clan. Are you really not a cultivator of the Tribulation Spirit Clan? No. Ning Fan shook his head and said. Is that so? Shizihua suddenly let out a long sigh of relief. At this moment, she really did not have any prejudice against Ning Fan anymore. Not only that, but she also felt a little apologetic towards him. Previously, she thought that Ning Fan was a cultivator of the Tribulation Spirit Clan. That was why she kept trying to kill him. Now, however, it was clear that Ning Fan was not a cultivator of the Tribulation Spirit Clan at all. After going through so much trouble, she realized that she had killed the wrong person. Since she was wrong, she must make up for it. Shi Zihua, was a person who clearly distinguished between gratitude and grudges. She would never let anyone down. Since that was the case, she had already thought of how she was going to kill Ning Fan one last time. I, Shi Zihua, never turn my back on anyone. you seem to have cultivated a very impressive enchanting technique. Since you are a cultivator of enchanting techniques, I will give you a great fortune. Shi Zihua's words were clear and resonant. For some reason, her face was slightly flushed but her expression was incomparably firm. She seemed to be implying something. Ning Fan did not know the deeper meaning behind Shi Zihua's words but Dao Man Shan did. His eyes flashed with a hint of shock and he scolded. Fourth generation. Are you sure you want to do this? If you do this, not only will you lose all your reputation, even this mountain and sea shadow will also collapse. I, Shi Zihua, never turn my back on anyone. Shi Zihua answered indifferently. Her eyes scanned the empty seventh level of the barbarian tomb. Suddenly, she waved her hand and a violent gust of wind blew across the entire seventh level. As soon as the gust of wind blew past, all the corpses of the barbarian cultivators who were in deep slumber in this place disappeared. No one knew where they had been kept by her. I don't want outsiders to witness this matter. Can you please move to the sixth level for the time being? Shi Zihua said to Dao Man Shan. Since you have already made your decision, you have to bear all the consequences. Do you understand? Dao Man Shan suddenly sighed. I won't regret it. Please move to the sixth level. Shi Zihua said firmly. Fine. Since you won't regret it, I won't say anything else. Dao Man Shan looked at Ning Fan with a complicated expression. With a flash, he directly disappeared from the seventh level of the barbarian tomb. In the blink of an eye, only Ning Fan and Shi Zihua were left in the empty seventh level of the tomb. There was no one else. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. He did not know what kind of riddle Shi Zihua and Dao Man Shan were talking about. However, he also realized that Shi Zihua had made an important decision. There's no one here to disturb us anymore. However, the scenery here isn't very good. There's no atmosphere here. Shi Zihua once again waved her hand, and the scenery around them changed. The desolate ground suddenly became filled with life. Lush green grass grew out of the ground, and the dried-up river was filled with flowing water. In the blink of an eye, the seventh level had become a world of birdsong and fragrant flowers. Next, it will be the last killing tribulation of your eighth trial. Take care. Shi Zihua raised the corner of her lips and suddenly gave Ning Fan an amorous smile. She used a supreme bewitching technique in that smile. Even with Ning Fan's resistance against bewitching techniques, he could still sense a life-threatening crisis from Shi Zihua's smile. I have cultivated the bewitching technique all my life but I have never given myself to any man. It's because once I give myself to anyone, my power will be taken away by that person. Your bewitching technique is very strong. The person who created this technique must also be a peerless expert. Shi Zihua did not know that the bewitching technique Ning Fan cultivated was the yin-yang transformation created by ancient chaos. Her bewitching technique cultivation base was definitely not lower than ancient chaos. Unfortunately, when she was born, ancient chaos had not been born yet. Thus, the two generations of bewitching technique experts had never seen it before. The power of the bewitching technique originates from the control of desire. There are 5 types of desire, which are called the 5 skandhas. They are appearance, perception, thought, action and consciousness. Those who have the 5 skandhas are not afraid of the bewitching technique. However, those who can achieve this are rare even among saints. You can't achieve this. However, the jade locket in your body can give you the power to have the 5 skandhas completely empty. It's really a supreme treasure. With this treasure, it will be very difficult for me to bewitch you. Thus, I need to temporarily seal this treasure. All of a sudden, Shi Zihua made a strange hand seal. At this moment, the connection between Ning Fan and the yin-yang locket was forcefully cut off. The yin-yang locket could no longer protect Ning Fan's Dao heart and help him resist the bewitching technique. Next, Ning Fan had no choice but to use his own cultivation base to resist Shi Zihua's supreme bewitching technique. Inverse relic, appear. Shi Zihua suddenly opened her mouth and spat out a ray of pink light. It was actually a small piece of pink crystal. This item was somewhat similar to the relics of Buddha cultivators. However, most of the relics of Buddha cultivators were golden in color while the relic of Shi Zihua was pink. It was not a relic but a inverse relic. If the relic of Buddha cultivators is cultivated to a certain extent, it could allow those powerful Buddha cultivators to reach the 5 skandhas completely empty. As for the inverse relic, it was the exact opposite. It had the powerful power to make the enemy sink into their desires. At the moment when the inverse relic flew out, Ning Fan felt a buzzing sound in his mind. After that, he lost all consciousness. His eyes became dazed and within that daze, flames of lust were burning. Shi Zihua approached Ning Fan step by step. She tiptoed and hooked her arms around Ning Fan's neck. Then, she kissed him softly. That kiss was like a catalyst, causing the flames of lust in Ning Fan's eyes to burn even more fiercely. He suddenly pulled out the broken sword from Shi Zihua's chest and threw it to the ground. Then, his body involuntarily pulled Shi Zihua into his arms as if he wanted to crush her into pieces. What a good Ning Fan! First, he killed the 7th barbarian god Ta Gu with his sword. Then, he pulled the 4th barbarian god Shi Zihua into his arms. Shi Zihua's delicate body trembled slightly after being hugged so fiercely. She wanted to escape from his embrace but she did not do so in the end. Shi Zihua, would never let anyone down. Her mountain and sea shadow did not carry much of her true body's power. However, if she could pass it to Ning Fan, it would greatly improve his bewitching technique. No matter how Ning Fan's large hands wandered all over her body, she did not retreat in the end. Even when her clothes were peeled off piece by piece, she did not regret it. Ning Fan felt like he was having a long dream. In the dream, he was hugging a soft and fragrant body whose face could not be seen clearly. They were entangled with each other. Her moans were so alluring. Each of her moans seemed to have a special magical power, causing the flames of lust in Ning Fan's body to grow stronger and stronger. It was impossible for him to wake up from that state. What a terrifying bewitching technique! He had been cultivating bewitching techniques all his life. However, it was his first time being unable to extricate himself from the hands of another bewitching cultivator. In terms of attainments in bewitching techniques, Shi Zihua might be slightly stronger than Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. After all, Ancient Chaos was good at 2 cultivation techniques. The yin-yang transformation was just the foundation of the chaotic loop art. To Ancient Chaos, the bewitching technique was just a method to increase his cultivation base. It was not an offensive method. Shi Zihua, on the other hand, was different. All of her power originated from her bewitching technique. Her attainments in bewitching techniques were not something that Ning Fan could compare with. Immerse, 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 their tongues intertwined with each other again and again. Every time, he would need the softness in front of Shi Zihua's chest, they would wander around that secluded path. However, Shi Zihua seemed to be deliberately teasing him. She did not allow Ning Fan to enter her body. After a long time, many things happened between the two of them except for the last step. The power of Shi Zihua's bewitching technique flowed continuously into Ning Fan's body. There's still one last step left, Shi Zihua panted. Her cheeks were burning hot. She was ready to guide Ning Fan into her body. As long as this step is completed, all of her remaining power would belong to Ning Fan. As for her, the mountain and sea shadow, she would completely disappear from this world. There was no need to regret or hesitate. Shi Zihua stared at Ning Fan who was lying on top of her. This person was the 10th barbarian god. He was the person who had the hope of revitalizing the barbarian race. As for her, she was just the mountain and sea shadow that was left behind many years after her death. If her death could make up for her previous mistakes and allow Ning Fan's power to increase, allowing the barbarian race to rise earlier, she would not hesitate to destroy this mountain and sea shadow. Ning Fan, huh? The future of the barbarian race will be entrusted to you. Take your time to comprehend my inverse relic technique. She gently closed her eyes and guided Ning Fan into her body. However, at this moment, Ning Fan who had been immersed in the bewitching technique suddenly roared. His eyes forcefully regained their clarity. In the end, he did not enter her body, I see. So this is what you meant when you and Senior Dao Man Shan talked about. Ning Fan, who had regained his consciousness, understood the deeper meaning behind Shi Zihua's words. He also guessed the consequences of her actions. Impossible. You can actually wake up from the bewitching technique with your own willpower. Shi Zihua was so shocked that she could not close her mouth. She had sealed the yin-yang locket and even summoned the inverse relic to bewitch a cultivator by sacrificing her purity. Logically speaking, even if the other party was an incipient saint, as long as he had not attained the emptiness of 5 skandhas, he would be bewitched by her and would not be able to wake up. How did Ning Fan wake up? His cultivation base had not even reached the eternal immortal venerable realm yet. Similarly, he had not cultivated to the emptiness of 5 skandhas. Those who have achieved the emptiness of 5 skandhas would not feel joy or sorrow. Each of them was like an otherworldly guest who had cut off their ties with the mortal world. Ning Fan was obviously not that kind of person. Without a cultivation base that surpassed the incipient saint realm and without the emptiness of 5 skandhas, how did he wake up? How did he overcome the desires in his heart? However, she did not know that Ning Fan would never achieve the emptiness of 5 skandhas in his entire life. I can only achieve this because there are people who have given up all their desires. Ning Fan, on the other hand, refused to give up anything and could not abandon the mortal world. The reason why Ning Fan could wake up was not because he had overcome the desires in his heart. Instead, it was because he had accepted all those desires and controlled them with his heart. This was a realm that was different from the emptiness of 5 skandhas. This was called persistence. Nothing is impossible. Your bewitching technique is indeed powerful. However, if I let go of my heart and don't suppress it, it is still possible for me to regain some of my rationality. Ning Fan's breathing became heavier and heavier. The flames of lust in his eyes did not diminish. Instead, it grew stronger. He pinched Shi Zihua's pair of soft breasts. Immediately, Shi Zihua, who was below him, let out a soft moan in pain. However, there was a different kind of comfort that lingered in her heart. You are very beautiful. If I have intercourse with you, I believe it will be an extremely pleasant thing. Ning Fan's naked words made Shi Zihua's face turn even redder. Isn't this man too shameless? How could he say such a shameful word as intercourse? However, it's a pity. If I have you now, I believe this mountain and sea shadow of yours will immediately collapse. Green light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. He actually relied on the power of the second level of the heaven realm to suppress the flames of lust that had been controlled in his eyes. If I have you, you will be my woman. As for me, I don't have the habit of letting my woman die in front of me. Therefore, I don't want you. I don't want you. Shi Zihua's heart was filled with anger. She was actually despised by Ning Fan. In the ancient barbarian world, there were countless people who wanted to get intimate with her. She had willingly delivered herself to Ning Fan, but he actually despised her and did not want her. Putting aside her beauty and her bewitching technique, the benefits that he could get from her should be enough to move people's hearts. Ning Fan should be able to see that if he has her, he will be able to obtain the rest of her power. Why did he reject her? Even if he is cold-blooded and heartless, he would not push her away for the sake of pursuing power, right? Ning Fan turned around and stood up. With a wave of his hand, he put on his robes again. At the moment when he completely regained his consciousness, he had already passed the 8th trial. Of course, even if he was not conscious, he would still be able to pass the 8th trial because Shi Zihua had obviously decided to go easy on him. Unfortunately, Shi Zihua did not expect that Ning Fan would be able to wake up from her bewitching technique with his own willpower. Are you still not going to put on your clothes? I have already passed the 8th trial. Senior Dao Man Shan will be back soon. Do you want him to see you like this? Ning Fan's gaze swept across Shi Zihua. At this moment, her body was as limp as mud. She was lying on the grass. Her snow-white body was covered with green and purple kiss marks. Without a doubt, he was the one who did it. when he thought of this, the way Ning Fan looked at Shi Zihua actually became a little complicated. It didn't matter how the erotic affair started or how it ended. He and Shi Zihua still had an unclear relationship after all. This crazy woman. Why would she throw herself at me like this? If I didn't wake up in time, the image of the mountains and seas in Shi Zihua's painting would definitely disappear today. What is this? After rolling on the grass with this woman, there seems to be something extra in my body. Ning Fan inspected his body and realized that there was something extra in his dantian. After passing the 8th trial, there were 5 drops of ancestral realm barbarian blood in Ning Fan's body. They were being devoured by the calamity blood in his body. At this moment, the extra thing in his body was not just the ancestral blood. There was also a round and translucent pink crystal the size of an egg. Due to the addition of this item, his cultivation base in the art of bewitching seemed to have improved tremendously. Moreover, he also gained some abilities related to the art of bewitching. This is the inverse relic. Ning Fan's expression changed. This was the inverse relic that was exactly the same as Shi Zihua's. What a pity. I didn't manage to complete the final step. I can only impart the power to condense the inverse relic to you. If only I could impart all of my power to you. Shi Zihua was filled with regret. She glared at Ning Fan angrily. She had put aside her sense of shame and rolled on the grass with Ning Fan for half a day. She had done a lot of things on a large scale, but she still failed to achieve her initial goal. She had a feeling that her efforts were in vain. She felt like she had suffered a great loss. Of course, her heart was also filled with mixed feelings. She, a person who had died many years ago, actually rolled on the grass with a junior whom she met for the first time in her future life. I'm afraid she won't be able to forget this memory even if she wants to. Achoo, achoo, achoo. In the outside world, the eyeball monster was sneezing one after another. No one knew what organ he was using to sneeze. Aya, aya. That stinky brat has already passed the 8th trial for more than a year. Why isn't he out yet? Speaking of which, that brat is really lucky. He could stay together with the goddess of my heart for an entire year. I'm really envious of him. I'm so envious that I want to strangle him to death. If the eyeball monster knew that Ning Fan had already done a lot of shameful things with the goddess of his heart, he would probably be even more envious. They would probably go crazy with envy and tear Ning Fan's body into 1,000 pieces. Chapter 943. After a long time, Dao Man Shan returned to the 7th floor with a heavy heart. He had already sensed that Ning Fan had passed through the 8th trial. This meant that the 4th barbarian god had already completed the task of inheriting the inheritance. He must have passed away, the 4th barbarian. She was a god of berserkers who cared about the berserkers. Her death made Dao Man Shan feel somewhat sentimental. However, when Dao Man Shan returned to the 7th level, he saw a scene that made him not know whether to laugh or cry. The image of the mountains and seas painted by Shi Zi did not disperse. At this moment, her clothes were neat and tidy. She was teaching Ning Fan the transformation of the reverse relic. What was going on? You have already cultivated the inverse relic. The strength of the relic depends on the amount of charming aura it contains. When cultivating the inverse relic, there are a few points that you need to pay attention to. First, second, third. With the inverse relic, the more cauldrons you have, the greater the benefits. You don't have to pluck those cauldrons, you just need. Shi Zihua was like a teacher. She continuously taught Ning Fan the method to cultivate the inverse relic. Occasionally, she would even demonstrate. Ning Fan was like a student, quietly listening to Shi Zihua's explanation. Occasionally, he would raise 1 or 2 questions regarding the cultivation of bewitching techniques. The two of them had a serious look on their faces as if nothing romantic had happened between the two of them, but did nothing really happen? The meticulous Dao Man Shan naturally noticed that there were some bruises on Shi Zihua's fair neck. It seemed that the 4th and 10th generations had done something. However, if they had done that, the mountain and sea shadow of the 4th generation would have disappeared without a doubt. Why didn't it disappear? He couldn't figure it out. Forget it, no matter what, it was a good thing that the fourth generation did not disperse. As for the specifics, there was no need to delve into it. Dao Man Shan did not disturb them. Instead, he stood at the side, waiting for Shi Zihua to impart her cultivation experience to Ning Fan. A few hours later, Shi Zihua finally finished teaching Ning Fan. After listening to Shi Zihua's guidance, Ning Fan's understanding of the art of enchantment had improved significantly. With Shi Zihua's help, Ning Fan was lucky enough to cultivate the inverse relic. It was really a good item that had great uses. Unfortunately, he did not have a human cauldron with him at the moment. Thus, he could not test the various wonders of the inverse relic. As for its specific abilities, there was no need to go into details at this moment. You'll know soon enough. Many thanks to Senior for imparting the Tao to me. Ning Fan cupped his fists at Shi Zihua to express his gratitude. His eyes were filled with a hint of complicated emotions. After the erotic experience of rolling on the grass, she felt a little awkward calling him Senior. You don't have to thank me. Previously, I had the intention to kill you and gave you the Ni relic as compensation. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. Would they really not owe each other anything? Shi Zihua also had mixed feelings. Even though she was just the shadow of a mountain and sea and her true body was already dead, she could not pretend that the things that happened between her and Ning Fan had never happened. She had cultivated the bewitching art all her life, but this was the first time she was so intimate with a man. Shi Zihua's face turned red as she recalled the scene of them rolling on the grass. Initially, he was prepared to die, which was why he dared to do those things. Who would have thought that the shadow of mountain and sea was still alive? Now that he had to face Ning Fan again, he felt somewhat embarrassed. I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you. Suddenly, Shi Zihua recalled Ning Fan's resolute refusal. She felt a little annoyed and glared at Ning Fan in annoyance. She was actually despised. In Dao Man Shan's eyes, however, it was regarded as the flirting between a couple. As expected, something happened between the 10th and 4th generations. Dao Man Shan chuckled. His chuckle made Shi Zihua's expression turn serious. She was so angry that she forgot that she had left the 1st generation alone for a few hours. How rude of me. Shi Zihua restrained her expression and said to Dao Man Shan. The 10th generation's 8th trial has been successfully passed. I'll take my leave first. Ning Fan had already passed the 8th trial. What was the point of her staying here? After bidding farewell to Dao Man Shan, Shi Zihua did not look at Ning Fan again. Her figure flashed and disappeared. She only left behind a voice transmission that resounded in Ning Fan's mind. Humph. We won't meet again. There was still a lot of resentment in her voice. We won't meet again, huh? Ning Fan looked at the place where Shi Zihua disappeared and shook his head helplessly. I have a feeling that we will meet again. If I have the chance to leave the 4 heavens and 9 worlds in the future and head to the 3 great true worlds, I will most likely pay a visit to the barbarian race. There should be a day where we can meet again, hee. The 4th generation has always been a qualified barbarian god. She holds a high position like an emperor and never shows her emotions. She may look weak on the outside but she is strong on the inside. I didn't expect that you could actually make her show such a girlish side. I'm really curious about what happened between you and the 4th generation. Dao Man Shan shook his head with a smile. Then, he took out a dark red scroll and handed it to Ning Fan. This is... Ning Fan said with a hint of surprise. This is the method to use the seed. It is also the method to control the power of slaughter and punishment. Keep it first and look at it in the future. You have already passed the 8th trial and are about to leave this place. I have something to tell you. Senior, feel free to speak your mind. Ning Fan noticed that Dao Man Shan's expression was very serious. Presumably, what he was going to say was very important. Thus, he listened attentively. You have the power of the divine race, demon race and devil race. These three races belong to the defying Earth world. However, you also have the power of the Jialing clan. The Jialing clan belongs to the mortal world. The cultivation method you cultivate is very special. It can actually allow the 4 different bloodlines to coexist harmoniously. This is the first time I've heard of such a cultivation method. Compared to those cultivators who fuse their bloodlines with the help of the ancient return fruit, it is much stronger. Ning Fan initially thought that Dao Man Shan was probably going to tell him to protect the barbarian race. He did not expect that he was talking about his bloodline. Your cultivation method is extraordinary. I believe that you will truly fuse these 4 bloodlines one day. However, when that time comes, the 4 bloodlines will definitely need to have a master and a subordinate bloodline. I have a suggestion that I hope you will listen to. When you fuse your bloodlines, you must not use the Jialing clan as the main bloodline. The power of the Jialing clan is very strong, but it has a huge drawback. If you can make the divine race, demon race, and devil race suppress the Jialing clan, you will not have to worry about anything for the rest of your life. If you can't do this, you will never be able to escape from the hands of the Tribulation Lord. Once you enter the true world, you will be faced with a great disaster. Remember this. Remember this. Dao Man Shan gave Ning Fan a deep look. Then, he gradually faded and disappeared along with the entire ancient barbarian tomb. His cultivation base was far beyond ancient chaos. Even if he called the Tribulation Lord's name directly, it would not be a problem. Until he completely disappeared, Dao Man Shan did not make any request to Ning Fan to revitalize the barbarian race. From Dao Man Shan's point of view, there were some words that did not need to be said. If Ning Fan had the heart, he would naturally revitalize the barbarian race. If he did not have the heart, he could not force it either. Dao Man Shan's last words echoed in Ning Fan's ears for a long time, causing his expression to become unprecedentedly solemn. Can't I use the Jialing clan as the main bloodline to fuse with my bloodline? Even after his consciousness returned to his main body in the outside world, Ning Fan still remained silent. He slowly walked out of the lake and went to the shore. The power of the undying devil blood in the lake had already been depleted during the past year. Therefore, the lake water had become clear again. Oh my! Amazing! Brat, you actually passed the 8th trial. Amazing! Truly amazing! The garrulous voice of the eyeball awakened Ning Fan from his thoughts. How is it? Isn't the 4th barbarian god beautiful? Isn't it a feast for your eyes? Hee. It wasn't a loss to pass the 8th trial, right? I didn't lie to you, did I? What a pity. You can only enjoy it. The 4th barbarian god has never been intimate with any man. Don't even think about kissing her. Sigh. Young man, be more open-minded. Those noble women aren't people that lowly commoners like me can covet. The strange eyeball comforted him as if he was a kindred spirit. Ning Fan did not know what to say. Should he tell the strange eyeball that he did not only kiss Shi Zihua but also Shi Zihua was the one who threw herself at him? Oh right. Brat, was the strange phenomenon of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens related to you? The strange eyeball suddenly thought of something important and asked. Yes. After thinking for a while, Ning Fan felt that there was no need to hide this matter from the strange eyeball. Thus, he answered honestly. Why you? You actually became the 10th barbarian god of the ancient barbarian world. Really? Even though the strange eyeball had already expected it, he was still overjoyed when his guess was confirmed. If Ning Fan really becomes the 10th barbarian god, his chances of killing Yin Mo would undoubtedly increase by a lot. This was because as long as Ning Fan becomes the barbarian god, he would possess the power of slaughter and punishment. The only problem was that Yin Mo had too many punishment mountains. There were a total of 3 of them. As Yin Mo's right eye, the strange eyeball knew that Yin Mo had already cultivated the 3rd punishment mountain during these years. In terms of the power of punishment, as long as the legendary barbarian god in the history of the barbarian race could surpass him, Brat, how many punishment mountains do you have now? 1 or 2. The strange eyeball thought to himself. In the history of the barbarian race, most of the barbarian gods only had one punishment mountain. In the past, only Shi Zihua and Yin Mo had 2 punishment mountains. The second generation had 2.5 punishment mountains. Of course, the current Yin Mo had 3 punishment mountains. The possibility of Ning Fan surpassing Yin Mo was not high. It would be difficult for him to have 3 punishment mountains. The lowest he had was 1. It was also possible for him to have 2 punishment mountains, but the possibility was not high. It would be great if this brat could have 2 punishment mountains. In that case, his chances of killing Yin Mo could increase to at least 60%, 36. Ning Fan thought for a while and answered the strange eyeball truthfully. He could faintly feel that the strange eyeball's question was related to killing Yin Mo. Thus, he naturally would not hide anything. What did you say? I don't think I heard it clearly. Say it again. Is it 3 or 6? The strange eyeball's face was filled with astonishment. Just now, he actually heard Ning Fan say 36. I'm hallucinating. I must be hallucinating. 36. Ning Fan answered again. This time, he directly summoned the 36 punishment mountains and released all of their punishment power. Suddenly, 36 gigantic golden mountains appeared in the sky. The formless punishment power spread across the entire space of the copper pagoda in just a moment. Miao Yen was not a barbarian. He could not feel the punishment power that originated from his bloodline. However, the strange eyeball was different. The true identity of the strange eyeball was the right eye of old ancestor Yin Mo. Due to some reasons, it was separated from Yin Mo's body. Yin Mo was a genuine barbarian cultivator. The strange eyeball could also be considered as a barbarian cultivator. As long as one was a barbarian cultivator, they would be able to feel the terrifying aura power of the 36 punishment mountains. Even though the strange eyeball had the cultivation base of a 7 tribulation immortal emperor, it still felt tiny in front of the 36 mountains. Ning Fan, who was standing in front of it, gave it a feeling that it was impossible to defeat him. It was as if he could kill it on the spot with just a thought. Facing Ning Fan, the strange eyeball began to tremble. It trembled so much that it could no longer maintain its flying posture and fell to the ground. 3. 36 mountains. What a terrifying punishment power. I can't resist it and I can't defeat it. With this young man's cultivation base that is comparable to an immortal venerable, he can control the 36 mountains and kill the immortal emperors of the barbarian race who are below the 8 tribulation realm with just a thought. If his cultivation base is a little stronger, he can even kill a 9 tribulation barbarian emperor or a quasi-saint realm expert with just a thought. 90%. No, it's 95%. With the help of the 36 mountains, even if I don't plot against Yin Mo, I still have 95% chance of killing him if I fight him head-on. As for the remaining 5%, it depends on whether Yin Mo can be ruthless enough to do such a thing. However, even if the worst-case scenario happens, Yin Mo's strength will certainly be greatly reduced. Therefore, I still have a high chance of killing him. Great. This is really great. The strange eyeball that was lying on the ground did not feel humiliated at all. Instead, it was overjoyed. How could it not be happy when it had a 95% chance of killing Yin Mo? Joining hands with Ning Fan was really the best thing it had done in its life. Brat, you're amazing. I didn't expect that even the strange eyeball couldn't resist the power of my punishment. Ning Fan was also rather shocked. In the past, Ning Fan could not see through the strange eyeball's background. Now that he had become the 10th barbarian god of the barbarian race, he could easily see through the power of the strange eyeball. It belonged to the barbaric flash category. Naturally, it would be affected by the power of the Xing Mountains. Even though Ning Fan had suppressed Shi Zihua before, he was just a shadow of a mountain and a sea after all. He was not a living person. It was normal for him to be unable to withstand the power of his punishment. However, the strange eyeball was different. It was a living 7 tribulation barbarian emperor. Even so, it could not withstand the power of his punishment. The power of the 36 mountains was really not to be underestimated. As long as the 36 mountains existed, Ning Fan would have a huge advantage against barbarian cultivators. Of course, the 36 mountains also had more benefits. Ning Fan took out the scroll given to him by the barbarian mountain and scanned it with his spirit sense. Then, he kept it temporarily without looking at it in detail. Even though he had passed the 8th trial, he still had to pass the 9th trial. He must not let his guard down. Ning Fan opened his mouth and swallowed. The 36 mountains turned into 36 rays of golden light and went back into his body. The earth-shattering power of the punishment then dispersed. The strange eyeball flew up from the ground again. It could not hide its excitement and began to talk non-stop to Ning Fan. What it said was all nonsense. For example, "Brat, you're really amazing. You actually became the 10th barbarian god. Then, here comes the question. Can you lend me your 36 mountains to play with? Can I still borrow the mountains?" Ning Fan was speechless. Putting aside the fact that he could not lend the mountains, even if he could, he would not lend them to the strange eyeball. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about the strange eyeball. He sat cross-legged on the shore of the lake and circulated his tribulation blood to devour the 5 drops of ancestral realm barbarian blood in his body. There should still be some time before the arrival of the 9th trial. Strangely enough, all the barbarian blood in Ning Fan's body had been devoured by the tribulation blood. Even without any barbarian blood left, he could still become a barbarian god. Can I still become a barbarian god without barbarian blood? Ning Fan looked inside his body. He could vaguely feel that there was some kind of power between the tribulation blood and the barbarian blood. In the past, he could not feel the similarities between the two. However, after becoming a barbarian god, his senses towards the barbarian blood had become unprecedentedly sharp. Is this the reason why I can become a barbarian god? Time passed by slowly. A few hours later, the 5 drops of ancestral blood were all devoured by the tribulation blood. Ning Fan could feel that his tribulation blood cultivation base was only a few steps away from breaking through to the 3rd star true blood realm. If he passes the 9th trial, he would be able to break through to this realm. Rumble. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Rumble, rumble. Red clouds appeared above the lake. The 9th trial had arrived. Ning Fan did not think about whether he should go through the 9th trial or not. He slowly stood up from the ground and stared at the tribulation clouds with an expressionless face. He did not deliberately release his punishment aura force. However, the tribulation clouds still trembled when Ning Fan looked at them, as if they were afraid of him. Ning Fan had a feeling that the current him possessed the punishment aura force of the 36 mountains. Going through the 9th trial was as easy as flipping his palm. After all, there had never been a barbarian god who went through the 9th trial like Ning Fan. When the other barbarian gods went through the 9th trial, they had yet to become barbarian gods. Even if they had become barbarian gods, they would only have 1 or 2 Xing mountains. They would not be able to form such a deterrent force against the tribulation clouds. Ning Fan would be the first person to go through the 9th trial in the history of the ancient barbarian world. Ha ha ha. Stinking brat, we meet again. This time, you must die. A ferocious laughter suddenly resounded from the tribulation clouds. At the next moment, the scenery around Ning Fan changed drastically. He knew that someone had displayed a divine ability that could change the heavens and earth. That ferocious laughter sounded very familiar. If he was not mistaken, that person should be the 7th barbarian god, Ta Gu. During the 7th trial, Ning Fan slashed Ta Gu's sword and seized the power of Ta Gu's shaman flow technique. However, he did not expect that Ta Gu would actually return when he was going through the 9th trial, preparing to take revenge on Ning Fan. Ning Fan only felt his vision turning black. Very soon, he appeared in a world where mountains and seas were inverted. Ta Gu was floating in the sky not far away from Ning Fan. There were 2 other figures beside him. Ta Gu, is he the cultivator who destroyed your annihilation rune? He's very weak. His cultivation base hasn't even reached the immortal venerable realm. With your strength, it shouldn't be difficult for you to kill him if your annihilation technique isn't restrained. He's a lucky junior who actually managed to survive from your hands. One of the two old men who was tall and skinny said disdainfully. My technique won't be restrained by him. I just need a single thought to kill him. The other short old man said with certainty. I'll have to trouble the two of you to help me kill this brat. Tagu cupped his fists at the two old men with an extremely respectful expression. When he looked at Ning Fan, he was half gritting his teeth and half feeling pleased. Don't worry. You can't kill him, but it's as easy as flipping our palms for the two of us. Even though you and I aren't cultivators of the same generation, we are as close as brothers. Since this brat humiliated you, we naturally won't just stand by and watch. The tall and skinny old man said angrily. I heard that this brat is the Tai Tsung tribulation spirit. Hee hee. We were the servants of a tribulation spirit when we were alive. Now that we can kill a tribulation spirit after we die, it's really satisfying. The short old man smiled maliciously and licked his lips. Ning Fan expressionlessly looked at the three shadows of mountains and seas in front of him. Now that he had become the 10th barbarian god and the number of Xing mountains he had was far greater than ordinary barbarian gods, he could clearly feel that the three people in front of him also had a trace of punishment power in their bodies. Tagu was a barbarian god. Naturally, there would be a trace of punishment power in his body. Since the other two also had it, they must be barbarian gods as well. Do you want to kill me? Ning Fan suddenly asked. Humph. If I don't kill you, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart. Of course, I must kill you. The 9th trial will certainly be the place where you die. Tagu gnashed his teeth and said. Before you kill me, can you tell me your names? I want to know which generation of barbarian gods you are. Ning Fan's eyes shifted to the two old men beside Tagu. Oh. Brat, your eyesight isn't bad. You can actually see that the two of us are barbarian gods when we were alive. Fine. I'll let you die knowing the truth. We are. Just as the tall and skinny old man was about to answer, the short old man stopped him. 5th generation, don't waste your breath on this brat. He's probably trying to stall for time and prepare some kind of trump card to escape. Let's just kill him directly to avoid any trouble. The short old man said in a serious tone. No matter what, Ning Fan had tricked Tagu before. They had to be careful. Hee hee. Of course, I can see that he wants to stall for time. However, the three of us barbarian gods have joined forces and planted a restrictive formation here. With his cultivation base, it's impossible for him to escape. Stalling for time is useless. Killing him will be like slaughtering a dog. The tall and skinny old man said proudly. It turned out that the tall and skinny old man was the 5th generation barbarian god. As for the short old man, he was quite respectful towards the expert old man. He should be a barbarian god after the 5th generation. It's fine as long as he's not the 2nd or 3rd generation. In the history of the barbarian race, only the 1st to the 4th generation could be considered as the legitimate barbarian gods. The rest of the barbarian gods were the slaves of the Tai Tsung Jialing. They were the shame of the barbarian race. There's no harm in killing them. The reason why Ning Fan asked the question was because he was afraid that he might kill the wrong barbarian god. That was all. However, the other party misunderstood him as trying to stall for time. Stall for time? Is it necessary? Even Shi Zihua, who possessed 2 Xing mountains, would find it hard to fight against Ning Fan with just the mountain and sea shadow. In fact, he was almost forced to death by Ning Fan. The 3 barbarian gods in front of him seemed to only have 1 Xing mountain each. They were even weaker than Shi Zihua. It was still uncertain who would be the one to kill who, like slaughtering a dog. Attack! Barbarian Sung's mountain and sea fall. The short old man waved his hand and a golden talisman brush appeared in his hand. Then, he drew at the sky. All of a sudden, more inverted mountains and seas appeared in the sky. They turned into a giant hand that was burning with flames and pressed down on Ning Fan. The invisible force was enough to easily kill any immortal king. Even an immortal emperor would find it hard to resist it. Evil barbarian ghost control technique. The tall and skinny old man waved his sleeve. Immediately, countless eerie ghosts flew out from his sleeve and turned into an evil killing formation diagram that shrouded every direction. Before his divine ability was displayed, there was already a terrifying baleful chi rushing towards him. Even an ordinary immortal emperor would be terrified by this killing chi. Ta Gu was the only one who did not make a move. His mountain and sea shadow could only use one type of divine ability, the Oblivion Flow technique. Ning Fan had already destroyed its runes. Thus, he could no longer use his divine ability on Ning Fan. All he could do was watch from the side. Even though he could not attack Ning Fan, he was convinced that Ning Fan would die for sure. In the face of absolute power, any tricks would be useless. Ning Fan might be lucky enough to trick him once, but could he trick the other two barbarian gods at the same time? He's going to die. He's going to die. How dare you slash me with your sword and destroy my divine ability? This is your ending. Bang! 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 The divine abilities of the two barbarian gods hit Ning Fan without any deviation. All of a sudden, the entire heaven and earth was filled with destructive waves. Everywhere was filled with explosive flashes of light. It was impossible to tell whether Ning Fan was dead or alive. However, thinking about it, Ning Fan was definitely going to die. Ta Gu was not the only one who thought so. The other two barbarian gods also had the same thought. However, as the barbarian light that filled the sky faded away, Ta Gu and the other two barbarian gods held their breaths. Each of them looked at Ning Fan, who was at the center of the attacks, as if they had seen a ghost. He didn't die. Ning Fan actually didn't die. Not only did he not die, but there was not even a single wound on his body. Above Ning Fan, there were 36 golden mountains hanging high in the sky. The earth-shattering power of slaughter and punishment swept across the entire heaven and earth in just an instant. If the power of slaughter and punishment is strong to a certain extent, it could make the opponent's barbarian technique not dare to attack him. Ning Fan did not even use the God-exterminating shield to defend himself. Instead, he just activated the punishment might of the 10th barbarian god, and the other two barbarian gods' divine abilities dared not approach him. The difference in the power of punishment between them was just too huge. How could the might of one mountain be compared to the might of 36 mountains? Even if Ta Gu and the others were at their peak, they would also be suppressed by Ning Fan's punishment might, let alone 3 mountain and sea shadows. 36 mountains. Impossible. How is this possible? Ta Gu and the others fell into a state of shock. They did not expect Ning Fan to have Xing mountains, let alone a terrifying 36 mountains. They did not have time to think further. Almost at the same time, the three of them turned around and tried to flee. However, they could not escape. I, Ning Fan, give you 3 barbarian cultivators the slaughter and punishment calamity. From today onwards, the 3 of you will be removed from the barbarian god position. Incinerate. 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 Almost at the same time when Ning Fan gave the order, a golden flame directly burst out from the bodies of Ta Gu and the others. The flame could not be extinguished and it burned their bloodlines. The golden flame was the punishment that Ning Fan had given them. It was the punishment that the barbarian gods gave to the barbarian cultivators. If Ta Gu and the others were still alive, they might still be able to resist it. Now, however, they were powerless and could only die. In just an instant, the 3 barbarian gods who were arrogant just now were all burned into ashes by the punishment flame. At this moment, the mountain and sea shadows of the 3 of them completely disappeared from the world. The 9th suffering was also past. The surrounding scenery changed. Ning Fan returned to the outside world. All of this happened in less than 100 breaths' time. In just 100 breaths' time, he had passed the 9th suffering. How did this brat do it? The eyeball stared at Ning Fan in shock and was speechless. In the history of the barbarian race, the number of Shaoxi barbarian cultivators who could pass the 9th suffering calamity could be counted with one's fingers. However, there was no one like Ning Fan who passed the 9th suffering calamity in less than 100 breaths' time. Of course, if the eyeball knew that Ning Fan's method of passing the 9th suffering calamity was to brutally kill 3 barbarian gods in a row, it would probably be even more shocked. I can kill Ta Gu and the others. Of course, I can also kill old ancestor Yin Mo. Ning Fan's confidence in killing Yin Mo was greatly boosted. After going through the 9th suffering calamity, his strength was definitely not the same as before. The eyeball monster recovered from the shock and began to chatter with Ning Fan. Most of the things it said were useless nonsense which was ignored by Ning Fan. He did not have the time to care about the eyeball. Instead, he focused on absorbing the new power of the ancestral blood in his body. After passing the 9th suffering calamity, Ning Fan's body had 6 more drops of ancestral-level barbarian blood. This time, it was definitely enough for the tribulation blood to break through to the 3rd star realm. As he continued to absorb the ancestral blood, the red light on Ning Fan's body became brighter and brighter. The aura force of his tribulation blood was actually comparable to that of a 0 tribulation eternal immortal venerable. That aura force continued to rise. As the ancestral blood was completely absorbed, Ning Fan's tribulation blood finally broke through to the 3rd star realm. At this moment, he could fight against the 1st tribulation eternal immortal venerable with just the power of his tribulation blood. A 3rd star tribulation blood could fight against a 1st tribulation eternal immortal venerable. If it's a 4 or 5 star tribulation blood, how strong would it be? Unfortunately, the 9th suffering calamity had passed. In the future, it would probably be extremely difficult for him to cultivate ancestral-level barbarian blood and provide it for the tribulation blood to cultivate. The 4th star realm was probably still far away. Just the power of the 3rd star tribulation blood was already so strong that Ning Fan found it hard to control it. He needed to stabilize his cultivation base immediately. I need to stabilize my tribulation blood's cultivation base immediately. After bidding farewell to the eyeball, Ning Fan turned into a ray of red light and disappeared in the space of the copper pagoda. He was looking for a place to go into seclusion. Next, I just need to help this young man fuse the 4 types of blood together. Then, the chance of killing Yin Mo should increase to 99%. The eyeball's eyes were filled with hope. This time, it would definitely help the undying great emperor take revenge and kill the traitor Yin Mo. If it still fails with Ning Fan's help, it should really find a piece of tofu and knock itself to death. Chapter 944. Within the space of the copper pagoda, Ning Fan found a place to enter seclusion to stabilize Jie Shui's cultivation base. This seclusion lasted for 9 years. During these 9 years, Miao Yan often came to Ning Fan's place for seclusion to ask about his recent situation. She was very concerned about him who suddenly went into seclusion. 9 years' time was enough for Miao Yan to figure out some things, namely that Ning Fan was not an expert who could go against saints as she had imagined him to be. When he met Miao Yan again, Ning Fan had already put on the ghost mask again. Even so, Miao Yan could still see some clues from their daily interactions. During the 9 years that he spent stabilizing his Jie Shui cultivation base, Ning Fan's qi fluctuated between high and low. When it was high, it was even comparable to the 1st tribulation immortal venerated. When it was low, it was just like a mid-true crossing realm junior. This was really strange. Miao Yan could not figure out Ning Fan's true cultivation base. However, she could tell that no matter how high Ning Fan's cultivation base was, it would not surpass the 1st eternal tribulation. At most, he would be a 1st tribulation immortal venerable. Could it be that fellow Taoist Zhao's true cultivation base is the same as mine? Both of us are only at the 1st immortal calamity. If that's the case, how did he kill thousands of immortal venerable corpses with a single sword strike? Did he use some kind of secret technique? In the cultivation world, is there such a secret technique that allows one to fight against 10,000? I can't figure it out. However, Miao Yan did not probe further. Everyone had their own secrets. Ning Fan had saved her several times and she would not purposely pry into his secrets. It had been 10 years since the two of them entered the copper pagoda with the eyeball monster. Coincidentally, the space of this copper pagoda could only last for 10 years. Not long after Ning Fan came out from his seclusion, the entire space of the copper pagoda showed signs of collapsing. "Stinking brat, you've finally come out. Your aura seems to have improved a lot. Since that's the case, let's change to another copper pagoda. I'll help you complete the last step of bloodline fusion." With a flash of gray light, the strange eyeball appeared in front of Ning Fan. Its eyes scrutinized Ning Fan for a long time. In the end, it brought Ning Fan and Miao Yan away from the space of the copper tower and returned to the outside world. Not long after everyone exited the tower, a cracking sound could be heard. Countless cracks appeared on the copper pagoda as it had used up all of its power. The space within it was also completely destroyed, making it impossible to enter. Ning Fan thought to himself. If I use up all the time within the copper pagoda, it will be destroyed, huh? After destroying one pagoda, there were still 20 unsealed copper pagodas left. This time, the eyeball monster brought Ning Fan and Miao Yan to the front of a 10-floored copper pagoda. Ning Fan glanced at it and saw a row of divine seal characters carved on the door of the copper pagoda. Sealed within this pagoda for 100 years. The 9 levels of the pagoda were sealed for 10 years, and the 10 levels were sealed for 100 years. That handwriting still carried the domineering intent of looking down on the entire world. However, this time, Ning Fan had already become the barbarian god. When he looked at those words again, he was actually not afraid of the terrifying aura force contained within them at all. He was already the god of the barbarian tribe and possessed the might of the 36 punishment mountains. Now, he could easily suppress most of the second-step barbarian cultivators with the power of punishment. Even though the power of punishment could not harm any race other than those who were berserker cultivators, it had a strong resistance against the pressure from the outside world. Perhaps this line of words was really left behind by the great Emperor of Morning Death who looked down upon the entire world. However, as long as this aura force was still limited to the second step, Ning Fan would not be intimidated at all. The eyeball monster brought the two of them into the bronze pagoda. Miao Yan's injuries had yet to fully recover after staying in the bronze pagoda for 10 years. Thus, she had to find a place to go into seclusion to recuperate. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was different. He was brought to a desolate desert within the space of the bronze pagoda by the eyeball monster. Above the desert, smoke rose up to the clouds. There were also scattered pyramids scattered on the desert. Outside those pyramids, there were many ancient statues with the bodies of sphinxes and human faces. Ning Fan felt that this scene was very familiar. It was as if he had seen it somewhere before. That's right. I've seen it before during the Great Calamity of Sun Luo. It was the scenery of the Quicksand Star region. Ning Fan still remembered that he had comprehended a trace of the Great Tao of Time in the Quicksand Star region. It was the power to control time. He was still there, refining a fragment of the Yin fusion pearl. He remembered that it was the 10th Yin fusion pearl, the strongest among the 10 Yin fusion pearls. What was different from the Quicksand Star region was that the pyramids here were all empty. They did not exist in temples. The power of time in this place is very strong. This place wasn't originally a desert. It's the power of the Tao law of time that changed the landscape of this place. Ning Fan muttered to himself. He gently closed his eyes. He could feel the breathing of the Tao law between the mountains and seas. The Tao law could also breathe. Everything was alive. This was the world in the eyes of barbarians. When Ning Fan closed his eyes, he seemed to be able to see the changes in the landscape of this place. Once, there were mountains and seas in this place. There was once a powerful cultivator who had comprehended the Tao law of time in this place. When he had a slight comprehension, the vast ocean turned into mulberry fields. The land turned into quicksand at his fingertips with just a thought. Who was that powerful cultivator? He had no way of knowing. Perhaps, he was the great Emperor Dao Wang that the eyeball monster mentioned. Alright. What's so interesting about a barren desert? Stop looking. Let's get down to business. Come out, small memorial archway. The eyeball monster shot out a ray of gray light. After the gray light faded, a 700 zhang tall stone archway appeared in the desert out of nowhere. It had 4 pillars and 3 doors. It had the texture of white jade in the mortal world. It was round and smooth, but it did not look like an ordinary stone. It gave off a strong immortal qi. In the cultivation world, memorial archways were very common. Some large sects loved to build such archways outside their mountain gates to suppress the spiritual qi of the sect. Even in the mortal world, such buildings could often be seen outside many tombs and temples. However, the archway in front of them did not look like the archways of ordinary sections. Faintly, it gave off a trace of innate qi. A mere stone archway was actually an innate magic treasure. This eyeball monster's wealth was indeed very rich. Sure enough, the small iron cage was not the only innate magic treasure. However, this name is really unpleasant to the ears. Small iron cage and small memorial archway. What kind of lousy names are these? Qian, Zhen, Kan, Zhen, Kun, Sun, Li, Dui. The eyeball monster chanted a divination incantation. Then, the stone archway lit up with rays of treasure light. The treasure light spread widely enough to envelop the entire space of the copper pagoda. As a result, all the spiritual qi in the space of the copper pagoda was forcibly gathered by the stone archway. Its effect was more domineering than any spirit-gathering formation. This treasure can absorb spiritual qi from all directions for my use. If you establish a sect and set up this treasure in your sect, the effect of your disciples' cultivation will definitely increase by more than 10 times. Hee. This magical treasure is not bad, isn't it? The eyeball monster proudly showed off. It's indeed not bad, but it's not very useful. Ning Fan thought to himself. In the cultivation world, there were not many people who were willing to absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to cultivate. It was fine for low-grade cultivators, but if those high-grade cultivators only went into seclusion, they might not be able to advance a small realm even after thousands of years. Only by relying on external resources could they quickly improve their cultivation base. Of course, this did not mean that meditation was not important. Naturally, there would be great risks if one wanted to compete for opportunities in the cultivation world. There were plenty of powerful cultivators who were willing to spend 1,000,000 years in seclusion. If he has this treasure, he would only need 100,000 years to achieve the same result. This item was not completely useless. Of course, if Ning Fan establishes a certain force, this item would be even more useful. It could strengthen all the disciples of his sect and speed up their cultivation. If this item is placed in the profound Yin world and given to the human cauldrons, it should be able to make their cultivation base skyrocket. If it was in the past, the improvement of the cultivation base of the human cauldrons would not bring much benefit to Ning Fan. But now, Ning Fan looked at the inverse relic in his dantian and his eyes flashed with an undetectable light. Perhaps this stone archway will also be of great use. Alright. I have already gathered the spiritual qi from all directions. It shouldn't be difficult for me to help you fuse the 4 types of bloodlines. The eyeball monster displayed its ability confidently. The entire desert was instantly shrouded by layers of gray light. No one could see what was happening inside. Time passed by slowly. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. The gray light on the desert gradually dispersed. It had only been a month, but the eyeball monster seemed to have exhausted a lot of its energy. Its expression was no longer as confident as before. Instead, it was filled with dejection. I can't fuse them. I can't fuse them at all. It's actually so difficult. This won't do. Your jia shui is too domineering. Let me take a rest first. Then, we will try again. The eyeball monster rested for a few days before it recovered to its peak state. Then, it displayed its ability again, causing the gray light to envelop the entire land. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. I failed again. I don't believe it. Let's try one more time. 6 months had passed, I still can't fuse them. Let's try again. 3 years had passed, damn it. Ancient Chaos is a liar. Didn't he say that fusing the bloodlines is easy? Why is it so difficult? After failing countless times, the eyeball monster finally lost his temper and began to curse Ancient Chaos. The eyeball monster had seen Ancient Chaos before. He even heard about the past of Ancient Chaos, who had fused the bloodlines of the Ancient God, Ancient Demon, and Ancient Devil. The process of Ancient Chaos's bloodline fusion was not difficult. Thus, the eyeball monster mistakenly thought that it would not be too difficult for Ning Fan to fuse 4 types of bloodlines. Unfortunately, he had completely underestimated the difficulty of Ning Fan fusing 4 types of bloodlines. If Ning Fan only had these 3 bloodlines, it would not be difficult for him to fuse them. After all, the power of these 3 bloodlines came from the same source. All of them were the power of the defying Earth realm. However, Ning Fan had the power of the Taicang Jia Ling in his body. It was a power that belonged to the mortal world, which was incompatible with the power of the defying Earth realm. Damn it. Let's try again. The eyeball monster wanted to pull Ning Fan to fuse his bloodlines again. However, Ning Fan refused with a bitter smile. There's no need. I have already figured out the reason why I can't fuse my bloodlines. With the current condition of my bloodlines, I'm afraid the result will be the same even if I try 1,000 times or 10,000 times. I will still fail. Now is not the right time to fuse the 4 types of bloodlines. In the end, the eyeball monster left reluctantly. It went to find a place to rest in seclusion and replenish the primordial qi that it had consumed in the past few years. As for Ning Fan, he sat cross-legged on the desert. He looked at the 4 types of bloodlines in his body with a solemn expression. To the inheritor of Ancient Chaos, fusing bloodlines was extremely important. Different bloodlines would more or less repel and restrain each other. The 4 types of bloodlines were like 4 countries that had joined forces. They were united in name, but they were not united after all. Only when they were truly united could they unleash their greatest power. If Ning Fan could fuse the 4 types of bloodlines, he would no longer be a divine cultivator, a devil cultivator, a demon cultivator, or a tribulation cultivator. There would only be one type of cultivation base in his body, which included the bloodlines of the 4 races. His strength would be greatly improved. Unfortunately, even with the help of the eyeball monster, the fusion of the bloodlines still failed. There are 3 reasons why I can't fuse the 4 types of bloodlines. Firstly, there is a huge barrier between the power of the mortal world and the defying Earth realm, which makes it difficult for them to coexist. In order to break this barrier, I need some external forces. The ancient returning fruit suddenly appeared in Ning Fan's mind. It was not the first time he heard that this fruit had the miraculous effect of fusing bloodlines. Even a cultivator who had never cultivated the yin-yang transformation could fuse many types of bloodlines with this fruit. If he could find some ancient returning fruits, he might be able to break the barrier between the bloodlines of the divine, demon, and devil race and the tribulation bloodline. Secondly, the divine, demon and devil bloodlines are too weak while the tribulation bloodline is too strong. I'm afraid that only when the 4 types of bloodlines achieve a balance in power can the fusion be completed. The tribulation bloodline was already very strong. Next, he needed to focus on cultivating the bloodlines of the divine, demon, and devil races. Thirdly, I have yet to see the essence of the 4 races' bloodlines clearly. The difference between the bloodlines of the 4 races is ultimately due to the difference in the Tao. The divine cultivates their heart, the demon cultivates their spirit, and the devil cultivates their blood. The heart, spirit, and blood are just the surface. The real difference is the difference in their views towards the Tao. Moreover, the understanding of the Tao of the tribulation spirit is completely different from the 3 races. From different perspectives, one would see the world differently. This was something Ning Fan understood after learning the mountain and sea incantation. There was still a long way to go before he could fuse the bloodlines of the 4 races. There was no need for him to be anxious. With Ning Fan's current abilities, he was quite confident in killing Mo. Of course, it would be best if he could improve his cultivation base to the next level. Ning Fan had a large number of heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures that could improve his cultivation base. However, he needed a lot of time to devour and refine them. He had cultivated the Yin-Yang Rain and the Yin-Yang Battle, but he had yet to complete the last step of the chaotic loop art, completely devouring and absorbing the power of the 2 great Yin and Yang to improve his cultivation base. Now that he had the sealed time tower, he had sufficient time to complete the cultivation that he could not complete in the past. Unfortunately, before Ning Fan could start his cultivation, Candle Bao's incessant chatter resounded in his mind. "Master, let me out. I can't take it anymore. I want to take revenge on that eyeball monster. Master, my wise master. Your little Bao is being bullied. How can you remain indifferent? That eyeball monster is not bullying me. It is slapping your face. Slapping Master's face is the same as slapping little Bao's face. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. Little Bao is bold enough to challenge Master to battle. I must teach that damn eyeball monster a lesson and help Master vent his anger." "You just want to vent your anger for yourself, don't you?" Ning Fan shook his head. At first, he wanted to punish Candle Bao properly and make it shut up. However, after thinking for a while, it did not seem like a bad idea to let Candle Bao suffer some losses in front of the eyeball monster. This Candle Bao indeed needed some fixing. "Are you sure you want to fight that eyeball monster?" Ning Fan bent his palm and took out Candle Bao. He asked with a profound tone. "Yes. I'm very sure. It's just a broken eyeball. How dare it lock me in the smelting furnace and almost melt me? Humph. That damn eyeball. Wise and great master, please give little Bao a chance to take revenge." Candle Bao said angrily. "Fine. If you want to go, then go. I won't stop you." Ning Fan loosened his grip. "Thank you for your kindness, Master. Master, you are really good to me. You are even willing to agree to such an unreasonable request. Little Bao's heart was really clouded by lard and my eyes were blind to betray you in the past. Hee hee. Little Bao will go and find that eyeball monster to deal with. Master, please wait for my good news." Candle Bao was overjoyed. As Ning Fan loosened his grip, it directly turned into a ray of light and flew away ferociously. It was going to find trouble with the eyeball monster. This Candle Bao is really stupid. It doesn't know that the eyeball monster has a 7 tribulation immortal emperor realm cultivation base. With its strength, provoking it at its doorstep is simply courting death. It will probably be taught a terrible lesson. Maybe it will be more obedient after that. As Candle Bao left, the place returned to its usual tranquility. Ning Fan closed his eyes. His body was gradually covered with a layer of wet rain qi. Gradually, the entire desert was filled with dark clouds. Not long after that, a drizzle fell from the sky. The rain star on Ning Fan's glabella shone with a strange light. At this moment, it was unsealed on its own. Ever since Ning Fan cultivated the Yin-Yang Rain, his cultivation base would skyrocket once the seal was unsealed. Ancient Chaos had once said that if he had the strength of a late True Crossing Realm expert, he could completely absorb and refine the power of the Yin-Yang Rain, allowing his cultivation base to skyrocket to the peak of the True Crossing Realm. At that time, the Yin-Yang Rain would not need to be unsealed again and again. Instead, it would directly turn into Ning Fan's cultivation base. Even though the current Ning Fan was not a late True Crossing Realm cultivator, he was a Tribulation Spirit with 3 stars True Blood. In terms of Tribulation Spirit's cultivation base alone, he was completely comparable to an immortal venerable who had experienced the first tribulation since the ancient times. It was not difficult for him to absorb the power of the Yin-Yang Rain. This 100-year-old copper tower can still stay for another 96 years. I wonder if it is enough for me to absorb all the power of the Yin-Yang Rain, Ning Fan's entire body became more and more blurry, as if he had merged with the curtain of rain. In the blink of an eye, 96 years had passed. When the 100-year-old copper tower was on the verge of collapse, Ning Fan walked out from the curtain of rain. His aura had obviously changed. He was clearly standing there. However, those whose cultivation base was lower than his could only sense a misty drizzle when they scanned this place with their spirit sense. They could not detect his presence at all. After 96 years of bitter cultivation, Ning Fan had only absorbed 1/3 of the power of the yin-yang rain. Even so, with just 1/3 of the power of the yin-yang rain, Ning Fan's ancient god realm rose from the mid-true crossing realm to the late true crossing realm. If he absorbs all the power of the yin-yang rain, it should not be difficult for him to break through to the peak true crossing realm. 96 years is not enough. I need at least another 200 years to finish devouring the yin-yang rain. It should be enough to enter 2 more 100-year-old towers. Master, save me. Master, my good master. Ah! You actually let your dog bite me. You despicable eyeball. Ah! Suddenly, Candle Bao's miserable cry for help was heard from afar. Ning Fan looked towards the direction of the voice and saw the scene of Candle Bao in his human form being chased by a group of giant silver wolves. If one takes a closer look, they would realize that those giant wolves were all puppet beasts. They were not living beings. When they were chasing after Candle Bao, they did not have much killing intent. Instead, they seemed to be toying with him. Hee hee. Go ahead and scream. Even if you scream until your throat breaks, no one will come to save you. The eyeball followed behind the group of wolves with a wretched smile. Speaking of which, when Candle Bao first came to pick a fight with Ning Fan, he was easily subdued by the eyeball monster. Since then, he had been locked in the cave and was tortured by the eyeball monster. This trial lasted for 96 years. 96 years. It was not easy for him to escape from the cave of the eyeball monster, but he was chased by a group of wolves again. Candle Bao wanted to cry but had no tears. He really regretted finding trouble with the eyeball monster in the past. This eyeball monster was too powerful. He could not afford to provoke it at all. Hee hee. I've caught you. What a torturous little demon. Unfortunately, you are a little lacking in training. Hee hee. Let this old man teach you a lesson on behalf of your master. Don't worry. It won't hurt this time. Being surrounded by the wolves, the eyeball monster quickly grabbed Candle Bao. His laughter became even more wretched. No. No. Master, save me. His brain is not normal. He. Candle Bao desperately cried for help like a young girl who was being bullied. What have these two fellows been doing all these years? Ning Fan's forehead was full of black lines. I feel that Candle Bao has left a huge psychological shadow in my heart. Is it my illusion? Chapter 945. Little brat, your cultivation base has improved again. Late true crossing ancient god realm. Not bad, not bad. After getting the Candle Bao back, the monster was already in a good mood. Now that Ning Fan had walked out of the rain and his cultivation base had improved, it was naturally in a better mood. The higher Ning Fan's cultivation base was, the more confident he would be in killing Yin Mo. How could it not be happy? Master, save me. I will definitely listen to you in the future. Master, you don't know this, but there is something wrong with this eyeball monster's brain. He. Woo woo woo. My body and my heart have already. Woo woo woo. Candle Bao, who was in human form, was currently tied up by a golden rope. It was held in the mouth of a giant wolf puppet. As soon as it saw Ning Fan, it immediately started crying. What exactly happened between these two? Ning Fan's forehead was filled with more black lines. I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask at all. I feel that my view of life will be overturned if I ask. However, no matter what, this Candle Bao belonged to me. I can't let the monster bully it too much. Ning Fan frowned slightly. He would naturally protect his own belongings. Just as he was about to ask for the candle bow back, he heard the monster's words. Little brat, this innate bow spirit of yours is not bad. How about lending it to me for a while? The monster smiled wretchedly. I have a way to make it advance into an innate bow spirit, master, don't agree to it. Don't ever. Wait. What did you say? You can help me advance into an innate bow spirit? The candle bow instantly quieted down and stopped crying. You can help this bow spirit advance into the innate bow spirit? Ning Fan was also a little surprised. Innate treasure spirits were rare in the world. Does this monster really have a way to achieve this? Hee hee. Little brat, look at what this is. The monster smiled mysteriously and summoned a ray of gray light. After the gray light dispersed, a small green bottle appeared in front of it. The small bottle was extremely old and was covered in green copper. As it hovered in the air, it actually caused the sky to be filled with a strange phenomenon of green light. That small green bottle was vaguely an innate magic treasure. It had the power of an innate treasure. However, Ning Fan did not know its specific function. Speaking of which, this was already the third innate magic treasure. The monster's wealth is indeed rich. Ning Fan did not know about this small green bottle. Just as he was about to ask about the function of this treasure, the candle bow on the other side lost its composure before he could open his mouth. This is... Could it be? Candle bow seemed to recognize this treasure. His breathing immediately became heavy and he was extremely excited. That's right, this is it. I bet you didn't expect that this old man would have such an item in his hands, the eyeball monster said proudly. I didn't expect this, I really didn't expect this. Hee hee, if I knew that Big Brother Eyeball had such a good item, I wouldn't have run away no matter what. It's still not too late to return to this old man's side, you little demon who says one thing but means another. The strange eyeball smiled wretchedly. Yes, little brother will definitely return to your side. Well, master, you don't have to save me, you go about your business. Hee hee, Big Brother Eyeball, shall we find a place to talk? Ning Fan. This candle bow, it was asking me for help earlier. Now that there are benefits, it wants to chase me away. As expected, he needed to be taught a lesson. Forget it, since it's willing to stay by the eyeball monster's side, I'll let it be. It would not be a bad thing if he could successfully evolve into an innate level bow spirit. Speaking of which, Ning Fan still had no idea what kind of magic treasure that small green bottle was. Eventually, the space of the 100-year-old bronze tower collapsed. Ning Fan followed the eyeball monster and entered another 100-year-old bronze tower. As soon as they entered the bronze tower, Candle Bow and the eyeball monster disappeared without a trace. No one knew what they went to do. Miao Yan's injuries had already healed. This time, she did not follow Ning Fan into the tower. Instead, she stayed outside the tower. To Ning Fan, obtaining 100 years of cultivation time was a great thing as it could allow his cultivation base to skyrocket. However, to Miao Yan, cultivating for 100 years was not very meaningful. Instead, it would cause the heavenly tribulations to descend 100 years earlier. It was really not worth it. That's right. Even if time stops in the time tower, the passage of time would still be recorded in the heavenly tribulations of the cultivators. Miao Yan was not ready for the heavenly tribulations yet. Naturally, she did not want to waste her time in the time tower to trigger the heavenly tribulations. Miao Yan floated in the air outside the tower forest, waiting for Ning Fan to return from his arduous cultivation. 100 years in the tower was just a moment outside the tower. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. Ning Fan followed the eyeball monster and Candle Bow out of the copper tower and entered the next one. Very quickly, another 100 years passed. Ning Fan walked out of the cave again. His ancient God Realm cultivation base had completely broken through to the peak stage of the Crossing Truth Realm. The cultivation of the Yin-Yang Rain could be considered to have been completed. It turned into a bright star on Ning Fan's glabella. Next, it was time to absorb Zhang Yin-Yang's power. There were still 12 unsealed 10-year time pagodas and 5 100-year time pagodas. In addition, there were 606 sealed pagodas in the forest of pagodas that could not be entered. If I absorb the power of Zhang Yin-Yang, I wonder if my ancient god cultivation will break through to the abandoning void realm in one go. After leaving the savage desolate ancient region, it was almost time for him to accompany Ouyang Nuan to the extreme Dan's sacred region. If his cultivation exceeded the peak of the crossing truth realm, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to enter the extreme Dan's sacred region. But Jie Shui's cultivation seemed to have long surpassed the limits of the peak of the Duzhen realm, and was comparable to a first tribulation immortal venerable. How should I calculate that with his cultivation? It seemed like he had long been unable to enter the extreme Dan's sacred region. Since things have come to this, I'll absorb Zhang Yin-Yang's power first. By then, I'll probably have to make a clone whose cultivation base is lower than abandoning void realm to accompany Nuan heir. I have no other choice. Ning Fan made up his mind. He followed the eyeball monster and candle bow into the next copper tower. 100 years passed. Another 100 years passed. This time, Ning Fan spent 500 years to completely absorb Zhang Yin-Yang's power. It actually took him 200 years more than Yu Yin-Yang. During these 500 years, Ning Fan experienced his first minor heavenly tribulation since he started cultivating. The minor heavenly tribulation that was extremely terrifying to ordinary cultivators of the Duzhen realm was directly crushed by Ning Fan with just a raise of his hand. The more times one went through a heavenly tribulation, the more terrifying it would be. It was just a minor heavenly tribulation, and it was just his first heavenly tribulation. Naturally, it was not difficult for him to pass it. 500 years later, Ning Fan had used up all the 100-year bronze pagodas. There were only 12 10-year bronze pagodas left. After 500 years of arduous cultivation, Ning Fan had absorbed all the power of Zhang Yin-Yang. The total amount of his magic power was almost comparable to a mid-abandoning void realm cultivator. However, he still could not easily enter the abandoning void realm. Abandoning void realm. The word abandonment was the key to the cultivation of this realm. In this realm, the cultivation of magic power was no doubt important, but what was more important was to get rid of the shackles in one's heart. In order to break through to the next realm, one must trigger the heart tribulation and pass it. Heart tribulation could only be encountered but not sought. One could only wait without knowing when it would come. Ning Fan still remembered the scene when Yao Qingyun triggered her heart tribulation in the past. Before Ning Fan appeared, Yao Qingyun was stuck at the bottleneck of the early abandoning void realm for 200,000 years. Later on, because of Ning Fan's appearance, Yao Qingyun triggered her heart tribulation. In the end, she broke through it and touched the bottleneck of the mid-abandoning void realm. After all these years, she should have already broken through to the mid-abandoning void realm. Recalling the past, Ning Fan could not help but smile. However, soon after, he felt a headache. Whether the heart tribulation of the sharing void realm could descend completely depended on luck. Could it be that he had to be like Yao Qingyun and be stuck at the bottleneck of the heart tribulation for 200,000 years before breaking through to the early abandoning void realm? He did not have that much time to waste. Speaking of which, the arrival of the heart tribulation was all about luck, and luck was usually related to luck. I wonder if increasing my luck can speed up the arrival of the heart tribulation. Ning Fan's face showed a thoughtful expression. The grade of his immortal luck was the 4th color. This grade was definitely not weak among the immortal venerables of the ancient times. However, compared to those immortal kings and immortal emperors, it was not considered outstanding. If there's a chance, it's time to increase my luck. In the next 120 years, Ning Fan used up the remaining 12 10-year-old sealed towers and only did 2 things. Firstly, he refined the fragments of old ancestor poisonous dragon's Dragon Ball. Secondly, he unsealed the 30 million traces of seals in the origin chi. The origin chi was a supreme treasure. If one refines and absorbs it, one's cultivation base could be greatly improved. However, even an ordinary immortal emperor would find it difficult to refine it. The current Ning Fan was even more incapable of doing so. To Ning Fan, the current use of the origin chi was only as a trump card. Once it explodes, even an immortal emperor would be severely injured. After unsealing the origin chi, Ning Fan could use it to attack his enemies without needing to ignite his blood. Without a doubt, his ability to protect himself would increase significantly. As for the act of refining the fragments of the Dragon Ball, Ning Fan's ancient demon cultivation base broke through continuously from the early mortal profound realm to the peak mortal profound realm. The Dragon Ball of the ancient immortal venerables was really a good item. It was comparable to a Dao fruit. The 620 years of bitter cultivation did not only change Ning Fan's cultivation base but also the strange relationship between the eyeball and candle bow, big brother eyeball. After spending 620 years together, I finally know that you are a good person. In order to avenge my elder brother's humiliation, I actually endured humiliation until now and lived a lonely life. Big brother's righteousness is beyond my reach. Candlebow said to the eyeball with tears in his eyes as if he was deeply touched. Little brother Zhu, I have misunderstood you. At first, I thought that you weren't good enough. That's why I tortured you for fun. However, I didn't expect that you actually followed the ancestral dragon Zhu Li in the past and fought everywhere. You once fought to protect the Zi-Do immortal domain and died with only the body of an artifact spirit left. You are simply the role model of the Zi-Do immortal domain. I promise that from today onwards, I will never bully you again. If I break this oath, I will punish me by not being able to see a beauty for the rest of my life. Big brother, you and I are kindred spirits. Why don't we become brothers of the opposite sex? All right. From today onwards, I will be your big brother eyeball. If you have any difficulties in the future, just tell me. Big brother. Second brother. Big brother. Second brother. What the hell is this? When he walked out of the copper tower again, Ning Fan was immediately shocked by the scene of the two fools burning yellow paper and becoming sworn brothers. He stared at the two clowns speechlessly. Weren't these two fools just a while ago? They kept calling me Little Demoness. How did they become sworn brothers again after 620 years? What exactly happened to these two fools during these 620 years? However, speaking of which, Candle Bao's chi had become much stronger. Even though it had not truly broken through the boundary of an innate artifact spirit, it was probably not far from it. It seems like this Candle Bao had obtained quite a lot of benefits from the eyeball. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about these two fools. His gaze shifted to the dense forest of towers in front of him. For the first time, he had the feeling of entering a treasure mountain and returning empty-handed. There were clearly many time towers in this place. However, because the seals had not been removed, he could not enter or use them. What a pity. He still had the dark time fruit that he had yet to refine. He would need a lot of time to complete this task. What kind of feeling is this? Ning Fan stared at the sealed towers and his eyes suddenly flashed with light. Hee hee. Brat, why are you looking at me like that? You still want to enter the time towers to cultivate? You've tasted the sweetness, haven't you? Unfortunately, the seals of the other time towers have yet to be broken. You can't enter them for the time being. The eyeball monster only noticed Ning Fan after it finished chatting with Candle Bao. Do you know that the seals of the towers here were personally placed by Great Emperor Mournful Death? They are extremely powerful. Even with my eternal 7 tribulations cultivation base, I've spent tens of thousands of years just to break 21 of the seals. With your current cultivation base, I'm afraid you still won't be able to break any of the seals even if you have tens of thousands of years. Speaking of which, it will be the time when Mo's great tribulation of imperfection descends in 24 hours. It's the best time to kill him. We don't have much time left. Sigh. If there's a chance in the future, I'll help you break a few more seals of the towers for your cultivation. As for now, let's talk business. The eyeball monster's words were directly ignored by Ning Fan. At this moment, Ning Fan's mind was completely focused on this forest of towers. He had a vague feeling. If he willed it, he could easily avoid all the seals of the towers in this place because he was the god of the barbarian race. I see. The seals of the towers here are all the restrictions of the barbarian race. That's why I have this strange feeling. Ning Fan walked towards one of the 10-years-old bronze towers and his eyes lit up with enlightenment. The person who placed the seals might be mournful death, but the restrictions used were the formations of the barbarian race. This was really a good coincidence. How could the formations of the barbarian race dare to stop the barbarian god? To Ning Fan, the seals here were useless. There was no need for him to break them. Brat, what are you trying to do? If the seal of this bronze tower is not broken, you won't be able to enter. The eyeball monster suddenly choked halfway through its words and could no longer speak. As soon as Ning Fan approached the 10-years-old bronze tower, the seals outside the tower began to creak. A few moments later, they parted on their own, forming a passage that allowed him to enter the tower. It was as if it was welcoming Ning Fan into the tower. After that, Ning Fan stepped into the 10-years-old bronze tower step by step without breaking the seal of the tower. Are you kidding me? He actually entered the bronze tower without breaking the seal. Could it be that the seal of this bronze tower had lost its effectiveness after so many years? The eyeball monster was shocked. It followed closely behind Ning Fan, wanting to enter the tower like Ning Fan. However, it was violently shaken by the power of the seal and was sent flying far away, cursing in pain. Damn it! The seal of the tower did not lose its effectiveness at all. How could this brat enter the tower? That's right. This brat is the barbarian god. He possesses the power of slaughter and punishment. No barbarian restriction under the heavens dares to stop him. To be able to make the formation give way on its own, this is the power of a god. Damn it, this power really makes this old man envious. Just as the eyeball monster cursed, Ning Fan walked out of the 10-years-old bronze tower and entered another bronze tower. Only a moment had passed in the outside world, but Ning Fan had already completed 10 years of bitter cultivation in the tower. 1, 2, 3. There were 407 bronze towers left in this place. In the end, Ning Fan entered all of them and destroyed them. 407 bronze towers, 4,070 years of bitter cultivation. That day at the riverside of the True Illusion River, Ning Fan only used 10 days to refine 1/10 of the dark time fruit with the help of the river demon. This time, Ning Fan did not have anyone to help him. After spending 4,070 years, he only managed to refine 1 dark time fruit. While refining the dark time fruit, Ning Fan also took out a 9 stars dark element cultivation technique, dark light scripture from the profound Een world's hidden scripture to cultivate. Dark light scripture. Among the 10 great secret races, it was the highest cultivation technique of the Dark Clan. Only the elite cultivators of the clan were qualified to cultivate this technique. Such a precious cultivation technique was kept in the hidden scripture tower by ancient chaos and given to Ning Fan. Now was the time for him to cultivate it. With the help of the dark light scripture, Ning Fan slowly formed the third divine Yin Yang star, the young dark star. The dark blood that was produced from his copulation with the little demoness was absorbed by the young star. Similarly, when he refined the dark time fruit, the speed of his cultivation also increased. Just a single dark time fruit had increased the speed of Ning Fan's cultivation by 30%. The medicinal power of the dark time fruit also increased Ning Fan's cultivation. A single dark time fruit could increase a cultivator's cultivation by 400,000 years. Ning Fan was a 3 orifices ancient god. Consuming the dark time fruit could offset 3,200,000 years of bitter cultivation. Since Ning Fan's ancient god realm cultivation base was obviously higher than that of the ancient demons and devils, the dark time fruit was the first to improve their cultivation bases. The ancient demons' cultivation soared from the peak of the human Xian realm to the late stage of the crossing truth realm. The ancient devil's cultivation also broke through to the third nirvana of the heavenly devil. There are 9 more dark time fruits. After the 10 years bronze pagodas were destroyed, Ning Fan began to enter the 100 years bronze pagodas for cultivation. There were a total of 133 years bronze pagodas in this place. After another 13,300 years of arduous cultivation, Ning Fan had refined another 3 dark time fruits. His ancient demon cultivation base had reached the peak of the crossing truth realm, but he still could not attain the shedding void realm. Ancient devil's cultivation had risen to the 5th nirvana of the sky devil. The quintuple nirvana heavenly devil corresponded to the early stage of shedding void, but it was much stronger than ordinary early stage shedding void cultivators. Ning Fan did not expect that it would be so difficult to break through the bottleneck of the renouncing void realm for both divine and demon cultivation bases. On the contrary, the ancient devil cultivation base did not have to face the bottleneck of the renouncing void realm. Ning Fan had also completely mastered the dark yin-yang and absorbed it into his body, turning it into his cultivation base. The 100-year-old copper pagodas here had been destroyed, leaving 78 11-story copper pagodas and 9 12-story copper pagodas. The 11th floor of the pagoda was sealed for 1,000 years, and the 12th floor was sealed for 10,000 years. Without any obstruction, he easily entered the pagoda. He entered a total of 26 pagoda before he managed to refine all the remaining dark time fruits. In total, Ning Fan had cultivated in the space of the copper pagoda for more than 40,000 years. To the outside world, 40,000 years of bitter cultivation was but a blink of an eye. After 40,000 years of arduous cultivation, his ancient god realm cultivation base was still stuck at the peak of the crossing truth realm. The samsara void tribulation had yet to befall him. However, in terms of the density of his magic power, it was already comparable to Shitsong late stage. The ancient demon's cultivation was also stuck at the peak of Duzhen Peak, and the thickness of the demon's spiritual power was comparable to the Shedding Kong late stage demon cultivator. Ancient devil didn't encounter any bottlenecks in his cultivation. Instead, he broke through to the 7th nirvana of the sky devil, the same level as the Shedding Void late stage. Ning Fan could casually use any one of the 3 powers of the divine, demon, and devil races and he would be ranked among the top experts of the late Shedding Void realm. If he uses the power of the 3 races at the same time, Ning Fan was confident that he could defeat a peak stage demon cultivator. Of course, if he uses the power of his tribulation blood, Ning Fan would be an ancient immortal venerated. After consuming all the dark time fruits, the opportunity he had in the past was considered to have been used up. If he still wants to improve his cultivation base in the future, he would need to rely on other methods. I have already consumed all the heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures I have. If I continue to cultivate in the Time Tower, it will just be a waste of time. It won't be of much use to me. Why don't I keep these time towers for the time being and use them in the future? Ning Fan made up his mind. He turned around and asked the strange eyeball. Can I take all of the towers here? Of course you can. If you help me kill Mo, I can give you all of the towers here. The strange eyeball was stunned for a moment and then said straightforwardly. That's good. I have completed all my cultivation. Next, let's talk about the important matter. You want to kill Mo. What's your plan? Ning Fan's 40,000 years of bitter cultivation was just a moment to the outside world. The strange phenomenon of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens had just dissipated. At the highest point of the 9 heavens imperial court, Mo's stone statue wore a gloomy expression. He did not expect that the 10th barbarian god would be born in the 9 heavens imperial court. Moreover, the power of this person's punishment was so strong that it was simply unheard of. The power of this person's punishment is 12 times stronger than mine. Who exactly is this person? Could it be that junior? Mo sensed for a while. Soon, he realized that the blessing technique that he planted in Ning Fan's body had been broken. Humph. It wasn't easy for me to find a perfect body. He actually broke free from my curse technique. Could it be that the person who became the 10th barbarian god is really this person? There are still 24 hours before my great tribulation of imperfection. The right eye probably won't let go of such an opportunity. It will definitely come and plot against me. If it was in the past, I wouldn't be afraid of it. But now. Yin Mo's eyes narrowed slightly. This time, the 10th barbarian god had intervened in the 9 heavens imperial court. If these changes were related to the right eye, then he could not afford to be careless in his confrontation with the right eye this time. He must be more cautious, forget it. 7th ancestor of the Fan clan, even though I don't fancy your body, it's not completely useless. I will accept this body without hesitation. From now on, until my next tribulation of imperfection arrives, all the cultivators on the 9th floor will be my life sacrifice. A gray shadow suddenly walked out from Yin Mo's stone statue. The gray shadow was extremely illusory. Its cultivation base was only at the early crossing truth realm. Looking at its appearance, it was clearly the same as Yin Mo. His left eye was still there while his right eye was empty as if it had been gouged out by someone. It was badly mutilated. This shadow was none other than a trace of Yin Mo's primordial spirit that was separated from his sealed primordial spirit. It was clearly just an early crossing truth realm primordial spirit, but it made the 7th ancestor's expression change greatly. Impossible. You can actually ignore immortal sovereign Zido's seal and separate a trace of your primordial spirit from your body. How is this possible? Rumble. What responded to the 7th ancestor was the sound of the sky collapsing. 6 bloody holes suddenly appeared in the sky. Each of the bloody holes sealed an ancient coffin that was dripping with blood. Among them, the 6th ancient coffin actually had a crack on it. Once, immortal sovereign Zido extracted Yin Mo's primordial spirit, divided it into 6 parts, and sealed each of them. After countless years, a trace of Yin Mo's primordial spirit finally escaped. However, it was still not enough. Yin Mo didn't want a trace of primordial spirit to be reborn. He wanted 6 primordial spirits to return to 1. You can leave it for the last to eat. Eat the others first. Yin Mo's body swayed and instantly disappeared from the center of the stone forest. At the same time, the entire 9th floor began to shake violently. The 7-colored seal that blocked the group of cultivators outside the first palace was cracking and cracking. Ha! The seal has been broken. The ancient passage is destined to belong to our demon race. Humph, it belongs to our human race. Charge! If we can seize the passage this time, we will definitely get a generous reward. The moment the seal was broken, hundreds of flowing lights burst out toward the top of the imperial court. Among them were Ao Xian, Lu He, and other immortal venerables. However, at this moment, a gray shadow blocked the group of cultivators with an indifferent expression as if he was looking at ants. I, Yin Mo, order the 9 heavens imperial court to seal.